Welcome to another edition of the rfvideo shoot interview series. It is more than a pleasure to be seated here in front of us. Konnan, we're live, I guess, in San Diego at his home. Yeah. A true international superstar, of course, very famous in Mexico. You revolutionized the sport of professional wrestling in Mexico with your style, and of course you introduced to the United States the luchadors and Mexican wrestling. And I guess one of our first questions we want to ask you is how you got into the business of professional wrestling.
How I got into it was kind of funny. I grew up watching it in Miami, so I grew up with Jack, Jerry Briscoe, Dusty Rhodes, that type of stuff, and I kind of outgrew it basically. And then like in '84, I started to watch it again, like when WWF was doing the Cyndi Lauper, Hulk Hogan thing. Right. That was all over the place. It was hard not to miss. And then one day I was playing basketball here in a place called National City near San Diego, and I got into a fight with this guy. And I handled myself pretty well, and this guy who saw me said, "Hey, how did you learn how to punch?" And I used to be a boxer in the Navy, and he said, "Look, I think I can make you a big star in Mexico. I'm a world champion." And he pulled out this belt out of the trunk of his car, right, who I later found out he had actually bought. But I was so mesmerized just looking at it, and he was telling me that he traveled and he partied and all this, and I just thought it was glamorous, and I thought it'd be easy. I thought it was kind of, I thought it was fake. So I went over there, and they introduced me to Rey Mysterio Jr.'s uncle, and the first thing they said was, "Yeah, he thinks this is easy and that it's fake." And I thought, fuck, if anybody does anything to me, I'll just knock him out,
Right.
And, they ended up fracturing my hip bone and giving me a concussion, and at that time I was lifting weights. I was real big, really buff, and I just thought nobody could handle me, and they really put a hurting on me. And I went in with 3 other guys, and both of them couldn't take it, and I just had a lot of pride, and I just stuck with it.
You were initially, I guess, trained by Ray Sr., right?
Yeah, by Ray Sr., by Super Astro, by Negro Casas, by Eddie Guerrero,
right,
by Eddie Guerrero's family.
Also in your class at the time, I guess, was Psychosis and Halloween, right?
Yeah, my actual class, well, let me digress. Eddie trained me like when I would go to Ciudad Juarez, which is on the border of El Paso, Texas.
Right.
Negro Casas would train me when I'd go to Mexico City. And then what I would do is I'd have to seek out all the old shooters who wouldn't give you any of the secrets of the trade unless you got them drunk. So usually I'd bring beers, get them drunk, and then have them train me. But my initial class was Rey Mysterio Jr., was Psychosis, was Damien, who everybody saw in WCW, Halloween. And let me see, is there anybody else that came out of that class? Actually, one of the teachers were Rey Mysterio's uncle, and Super Astro was one of our teachers too. Those were the guys that came out of. Plus, if anybody's seen Venom, he was also later on in our classes.
Who was like the standout guy in your class, besides yourself?
I wasn't really the standout guy. I wasn't really that good. The guy that was really good was Rey Mysterio Jr., with Psychosis. I mean, they were doing stuff that,
right,
incredibly revolutionary at the time. Those are the 2 standouts to me.
Who was John Roberts?
And before I get to John Roberts, here's a funny part. There were also guys, and I want to say their name. Anybody that's ever been to TJ or that can get any of the tapes of the stuff I promoted, if you watch Thunderbird and Cardinal, those guys were actually, believe it or not, 3 times better than Ray and Psychosis. And I think they got a lot of their stuff from like Thunderbird, Cardinal. There's one more guy. There's some guys that slipped my mind, but we had some really young, incredibly creative guys that just never got a break and just ended up getting hurt, and Ray and Psycho got his break. John Roberts is basically the guy that I met that saw me in the park.
Right. What were your initial impressions of lucha style?
I didn't even know what to think of it, because I think I was like 22 at the time, and I was like, what is this? There were masks, capes, 3 falls, a lot of blood. The people were frenzied, almost like you see in the movies, like at a cockfight or at a bullfight,
right,
which I've actually been able to live in person. And it's just the people over there are more bloodthirsty. They're just more physical, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they just love violence. Violence is just a part of their culture, much more than the United States. And that's kind of funny, since the United States has really been built on violence.
It's true. What was it like learning from Eddie Guerrero and Negro Casas?
They're the best, they're patient, they're doctors, they're like anything else, if you're a journalist, learning from, I don't know, maybe Roger Mudd or whoever, you know what I'm saying? It's just when you're learning from the best at their craft and they're still that young, you're just like, wow. I've always thought that Negro Casas and Eddie Guerrero, have never gotten their due.
I was going to ask you about that. Are you surprised Negro never made it big in the States? Or
yeah, I think Negro, by the time he came to WWF, they didn't know how to handle that whole situation. I think Antonio Pena, since he had lost so many people to me when I started Promo Azteca, which was another promotion in Mexico, for those of you that don't know, he needed to make himself look good with some of the veterans, and he sent WWF old guys that really couldn't rock it.
Right.
Like when I brought in Juventud and Silver King, and they were just rocking, and La Parca, and he had to make sure that I didn't take them away. So he didn't bring in the right guys. WWF wasn't really sure who they had in their hands, how to team them up, who knew what, and they left it to Victor Quiñones, who definitely didn't know what was going on, because Victor Quiñones was better versed at Japanese wrestlers. He could tell you any Japanese wrestler, their strength and their weakness, but not Mexico. In Mexico, he really wasn't that finely tuned. As a matter of fact, he asked me to give him people to give WWF, and one of the guys I gave him was Mr. Aguila,
right,
who's very good, but he needed to be put in there with programs like they did with Ray. When Ray first came in, they put him in with Di Malenko, who's, he's just a general. Right. And I'll never forget the first time I went in with Rey Mysterio, everybody was snickering and laughing and making jokes about him, and I went up to Ray and I go, you need to rock these motherfuckers because they're already laughing at you. And Ray's the type of guy that just doesn't get nervous about anything. And he rocked it. And I've only seen this once. I actually saw it on tape when I saw that match, that movie Under the Mat or whatever it was called.
Beyond the Mat.
Beyond the Mat.
Right.
I saw when Cactus Jack came back, everybody applauded him. You see that very rarely. What's the only time since I've been in WCW for 4.5 years I've ever seen a match applauded by everybody. He went into a Di Malenko and they rocked.
That was the Nitro match, right?
Yeah, and everybody just got up and applauded them, and a lot of people applauded the match with him and Eddie Guerrero in Halloween Havoc, which is one of the best matches I've ever seen.
I remember that. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Also, I guess, what was some of your first promotions you worked for in Mexico? I mean, Benjamin Mora promotion?
Yeah, the first one I worked for was Benjamin Mora, and then I came over here and I worked for Red Bastien for this promotion he had called Win. Which was actually syndicated and were really terrible matches.
Right.
But it was, I was starting and I was wrestling with Luis Piccoli and those people. And then after that, I went to Calgary. I was there with Stu Hart for maybe 6 months. And then from there, I went to Juarez, which is a promotion which was owned by a television station, and that's where I just became, huge.
Right.
And I was there, selling out week after week after week. Then Eddie Guerrero came in, and then we sold out week after week. And then I turned on him, and then Mexico found out about me, and they brought me there. And really, to tell you the truth, that was like an overnight success.
Now, your big feud, I guess, in Mexico was, at first with El Connect, right?
Yeah, with Connect in this place called El Toreo,
right?
Which is the three big promotions was UWA, and the king there was Connect, and then there was Arena Mexico, and the king there was probably Rayo, and then who else was there? That was about it, because then later I started AAA, but those were the two big ones. And then I always used to feud with Connect, but Connect, every time the foreigners would come in, like Coquina or the Headhunters, right, or Big Van Vader, they'd send me home. And I became very opinionated very early on in my career. And a lot of people were telling me, they go, why does Connect keep sending you home? You need to fight the foreigners too. The minute I questioned that, I got buried.
Right. Well, did you learn anything in UWA, or?
No, I got beat up a lot. I got beat up by Mil Máscaras, I got beat up by Dos Caras, I got beat up by El Signo, I got beat up by Enrique Vera. These guys, you'd have to see them on tape to know who they are, but they're just like legitimately tough guys, like maybe Rick Steiner or
right,
Haku. But then on top of that, they know how to shoot. So I was just first getting beat up in the ring and then getting beat up in the dressing room. And then finally, at first I was afraid. I didn't want to fight because I kind of felt that like street fighting, they knew something I didn't. And I just used to take a lot of blows. And then one time I just got mad and I just started punching back. And I just thought, okay, in the ring they can beat me up, but now I'm going to challenge them in the dressing room. And once I started to hold my ground, there was more respect. It was more like, if you're not going to respect me in the ring, then you're going to have to respect me in the dressing room. Right. But I took a lot of ass whoopings.
How did you make the move to EMLL?
EMLL, I got sick of Connect holding me back, because that's exactly what he was doing. And we've seen that in so many promotions. We're seeing it in WCW now. And he just held me back because I was getting very popular. I was always very charismatic, way beyond my years, very flamboyant. And I had a tremendous physique by Mexican standards.
Right.
And
a lot of people compare you not as a worker, but to physique as the ultimate warrior of Mexico.
Yeah, probably like that. And then they EMLL. I actually got into a fight with Connect and the promoter, Carlos Maines, who's a sweetheart. And I just told him, look, you got too many old guys here who aren't going to let me buy.
Right.
And he goes, well, you're already in the clique. There were guys like, for people that do know, the clique then was Fishman, Dos Caras, Enrique Vera, Gran Hamada, and Villano 3, and Connect. That was a clique. It was them 6. They never lost to anybody except themselves, okay? And I was in there. I was like the only young guy there. I was the only guy there under 30 years old. And most of them hated me. And they just hated my success. They didn't hate me because I was really very humble when I started.
Right.
I basically started to turn into a shark later on because there was no way you could navigate in those waters without being a shark. And I went to EML. I went to a place called Monterey, which is on. Excuse me.
Okay. Yep.
So, anyways, I went to Monterey. And Monterey is like, I don't know, I think maybe 150 miles from San Antonio. And it's been historically a border city that has an American style and American feel to it, like most border cities. And at that time, that was the hottest territory in Mexico. So, and there was a lot of work. You know, there were like 3-4 towns a week. And about 5 towns a week. 5 towns a week. So that was a lot of money. And in Mexico, you can wrestle 2-3 times in one day in like little villages that are only 50 to 60 miles away, because over there it ain't like here. Everybody has a car and there's mass transit. Over there, not that many people have a car, and a lot of people travel by subway. So a place that's 50 miles away would almost be the equivalent of a place that's 150 miles away here. So you could hit 2-3 shots, you know, in one day and make a lot of money. So I went down there, I was making humongous amount of money, became a huge star. So almost much in like the way I became a huge star in Juarez, which was on the border of El Paso. And they used to run on Sundays and Thursdays, so it was a sweet deal. I would actually stay there the whole week. Over there, they were running like 5 times a week. Well, EMLL heard about me, and the promoter from there called Carlos Elizondo, who also discovered. And at the beginning, I wasn't giving a lot of information because I didn't think that a lot of people really wanted to know about a lot of names and stuff, but you're telling me the hardcore fans are interested in this. Carlos Elizondo is basically the guy that started people like Stuka, Valente Fernandez, Latin Lover. He's a guy that started all those guys in Monterrey. And he started Hector Garza, Humberto Garza. He started the whole pretty boy look because, you know, he's homosexual. So he sent me Paco Alonso, who's the owner. He's the son of the founder. He's the grandson of the founder of the Arena Mexico, Chavo Luterot. He heard about me, and they used to have these little capsules on TV, which were like 2-minute segments of sports, and they'd have baseball, football, basketball. They'd actually include wrestling. Like every week, they'd see like this big guy with a mask that was really charismatic, and he wanted me for Arena Mexico, and that's how I went from UWA El Toreo Connect to Monterrey to EMLL.
What was that promotion like?
That was incredible. One of the best times of my whole career. Because when I got there, television was wrestling was just returning to television. Wrestling was deemed too violent for like 30 years and was actually off of TV. So the only way that you could see wrestling was either you had to come to like you had to get it through satellite dishes, which hardly nobody had.
Right.
So you had to go to like a rich guy's house or somebody that had it in the United States. And it was just deemed too violent for TV, and it was taken off. And I don't know who they made a deal with, but they brought wrestling back to TV. And I got there at the right time because that's when the wrestling boom, I mean, much like it was here 2-3 years ago, started. It was incredible. We were making movies, records, commercials. We were on lottery tickets. We were grand marshals of parades. I mean, it was incredible. And that's
what year around? Was this early 90s?
This was maybe 90, 91.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when like huge names that even to this day are legendary. Octagon, who nobody had ever heard of. Vampiro, who nobody had ever heard of. Konnan, who nobody had ever heard of. Those type of guys were really big. Excuse me a second. We were talking about, all the big names. They also had another guy. He's from somewhere in Texas called Solomon Grundy. He did like a Haystacks Calhoun gimmick.
Didn't he get arrested or something down there?
Yeah, he got deported, basically due, from what I understand, this is hearsay, from a guy called Fabulous Blondie, who was a huge name over there, a guy that from Georgia who wrestled as Ken Timms. He was a big name there. He, I guess he was jealous of Haystacks Calhoun's popularity and basically got immigration on him, which is basically the Secretary of Interior, to kick him out for working without permission, which is something I actually got deported for. But again, that might be hearsay, but I think it's pretty close to the truth. Okay, he got big there. The Great Art Bar, greatest heel I've ever seen in my life, became a household name. Those were just some, Volador, Misterioso, Máscara Sagrada. I mean, just about everybody that went to AAA, and of course, I revived Perro Aguayo's career.
I was going to ask you about that. You had the big match with him, the hair match, and then you did the three-way match, I think, with the mask match, right?
Right. Well, at that time, you know, I was hot, very hot, and I just thought I didn't need a mask. Back in that day, only one or two guys had ever taken off their mask and become more popular, because once you have the mask in Mexico, it's part of their culture. You know, back in the days of the Mayan Indians, the Aztec Indians, they would put on masks before war rituals. If you see a lot of the excavations they're having nowadays, they'll always dig up, you know, masks from the Olmec and Toltec eras. And that may not mean anything to you guys, but that's just ancient, you know, civilization in Mexico. So masks was always something big. People became endeared to them. They fell in love with them. It was almost like, you know, somebody would take Batman's mask off in the middle of a fight or something. You know, it's just, you know, it was just something. It was very shocking. And only a couple guys, maybe Black Shadow, Cien Caras, very few guys had ever taken their mask and gone on to greater prominence. You know, it was like 90% of guys that took them off, that was it. And especially if you were a heel, you had to be ugly, and if you were a babyface, you had to be extremely good looking, which obviously I didn't fall into that category. So, and I was a big babyface. What I had done is I did a gimmick because I wanted to make sure that people liked me. And this is actually how I started the book in Mexico. In our match, what I had done is I had gone all around Mexico and I had looked for a little kid who was very charismatic. And I brought him to the match. You know, I went like on a 6-month search. And I went and I brought him to the match and I said that he was my brother. At that time, I was going out with the queen of wrestling. In wrestling, they actually have like, they do it in baseball, football. They actually have like a princess for each sport every year. And she basically goes around and she does like goodwill tours and promoting the team. Okay? So at that time, I was going out the queen of wrestling, who everybody liked. So here she was in first row with this kid who was supposed to be my brother. And he came out before the match and he danced like this little country song that was real popular in Mexico at the time. It really endeared him to the fans, and I whispered in his ear, "Go and kick Perro Aguayo in the shins," and he went and he kicked him, and everybody laughed. So already I kind of psychologically had him on my side, because even though I was a babyface, he was Perro Aguayo, and Perro Aguayo in Mexico was at that time almost like Ric Flair would be now. Even if Ric Flair is a heel, you love him. You know what I'm saying, for everything he's done. And on top of that, I was a foreigner, and Mexicans are very nationalistic. Unlike Americans, Americans are ultra racist. Mexicans are ultra nationalistic, and there's a huge difference. So I wasn't Mexican, so that was strike two. So the people were kind of with me, and they were with Perro the whole match. And I was watching that match the other day, and I was so ahead of my time at the time. I was doing like all these, because I used to watch all Japan tapes till I was dead. I brought out all these power moves that I'd never seen in Mexico, and I was listening to the commentator. He didn't even know how to explain them. But anyways, what happened was we did an angle where by mistake I hit the referee. Okay, the referee Gran Davies, who passed away. He was the greatest referee in the history of Mexico. Very polemic, always very controversial. He was like, in Mexico right now, the heel referee is almost as famous as your top babyface. And we actually started him being a heel referee that night. He took a bump outside, bladed himself under the eye. He came in, blood was streaming out of his face, and me and him are arguing. So while me and him are arguing, Perro Aguayo drop kicks me in the back of the head, and I hit him again. Okay, the first time he wasn't bleeding, but when I hit him the second time, he came back in bleeding, and I did like a powerbomb type maneuver on Perro Aguayo, and he counts 1, 2, and then he goes, no, you're disqualified because of the blood. And I mean, the place was just livid. It was just incredible. It looked like, did you see those old film clips of this guy Andy Kaufman in Memphis? Right. And you're laughing at him because you're like, how could he get that mad because you couldn't do it today? Well, it was like that. I mean, just these people livid. And what happened was the kid comes into the ring, who's supposed to be my brother. You know, the queen of, you know, my girlfriend is crying, and I get on my knees, and he comes and he hugs me, and I'd already practiced with him that he had to cry if I lost my mask. So he's crying, and he takes off my mask like that, and he covers my face, and he doesn't want nobody to see it. And right there, the people, Konnan, I mean, I became like incredibly huge, and this was like on Channel 2 Televisa at 12 o'clock on Sunday, just so you can understand how powerful that was. Imagine WWF on CBS on Sunday at 12 o'clock when everybody's either getting up or coming back from church, you know?
Right.
So it was like the golden hour.
Also, I get Pena was booking at the time, right?
Pena was booking, and he was the one that actually gave me the okay to do that, because it was almost like Pena had his boys, and this guy called Juan Herrera had his boys, and he had worked for Paco Alonso for all these years, but he was almost a guy that was there for like all these years that really wasn't that valuable,
right.
But he'd been loyal, so he always had his spot, and he was always telling Paco Alonso, who was the owner, listen, this guy's good, let's do this, let's do that. But Pena came in there and was making new faces, was getting movie deals. I mean, he was just so creative. He's a workaholic. And then I remember that I wanted to do this whole angle, and I told Juan Herrera, he goes, nope, no way. He goes, you can't do none of that. And I go, well, fuck, you might as well I'll just go in there and just take off the mask. And then Pena came up to me and he goes, you know what, I already talked to Paco. Paco said I can do what I want. Great idea, do it. And then from then on, me and Pena were always really, really good friends.
Eventually, what led to him going and starting AAA?
He actually left AAA because Pena actually started working for Juan Herrera. Pena used to be a wrestler called Espectro, and what was the other name he had? He had like 2 or 3 names, but he never really made it big.
Right.
And
this was May of '92, I believe. He started at AAA, right?
Yeah, probably around that time. What happened was Pena started working for Juan Herrera. He actually used to go into the office in a place called La Coliseo, which was like our second biggest arena, because Paco owns arenas. You know, his family was the first millionaire. The Lutherots were the first millionaires in Mexico. So they own Arena Mexico, they own Coliseo, they own La Coliseo in Acapulco, Coliseo in Monterrey. I mean, they have a lot of holdings. As a matter of fact, right here in Tijuana, which is across the border, they own this huge port. So they're multimillionaires. And he would go to La Coliseo, and while Juan Herrera was in there stealing money, Paco would go in there and ask him, hey, Pena would go to Juan Herrera and tell him, you want me to throw away the trash, or do you want me to help you with anything? He just wanted to be close to the business. Juan Herrera would just treat him like a gopher. So Pena one day drew up a drawing of a mask, and he goes, here's a guy that I want you to, here's a cool mask I thought of. So Juan Herrera brought it to Paco, and it was Máscara Sagrada. Beautiful mask. If you've ever seen the guy's mask, just beautiful, beautiful cape. Then he came out with Volador. So one day he was just doodling in the office, and Paco Alonso comes by and he goes, who are you? He goes, oh, I'm Antonio Pena. He goes, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, I work for Juan Herrera. Doing what? He goes, oh, well, I just anything he wants me to do. Just recently, I drew these masks. He goes, have you liked them? He goes, I haven't seen them. He goes, Máscara Sagrada, that's my mask. He goes, what? And Juan Herrera never told him these were Antonio Pena's idea. He goes, Volador, Misterioso, all these guys, Mascarita Sagrada, which I thought one of the most brilliantest ideas I've ever seen in my life, making little minions out of the big guys with the same mask, same gimmick, Octagoncito. He goes, those are all my ideas. So I guess, he didn't really want to bury Juan Herrera, Paco Alonso, so he said, come here, I want you to be by my side and start helping me book. And Pena was definitely, without a doubt, 24 hours, 7 days a week, workaholic, negotiating, working, just working his ass off. And what happened is when wrestling got really, really big, it got so big that at one time, me and all the guys I mentioned before, we were actually working a week anywhere from 12 to 14 shots a week.
Damn.
Yeah, and there were places that you couldn't go on plane and you had to go on bus. So they had a syndicate in wrestling, which is a union, a wrestlers union, if you can believe that. And even though they looked out after our well-being, they stole a lot of money. They would put all these conditions on promoters, and if you don't do this, if you don't give us this much money, this wrestler won't come, and if you don't give us these conditions. So they were stealing all this money, and what they were doing is they were doing these mega shows. Just ridiculously loaded shows. Right. And we weren't seeing much more money than what we normally get. And of course, guys like me and Octagon and Vampiro, we started to complain. And we went to Pena, and we were like, Pena, bro, look at how the people we're drawing, and how come we're not even getting at least a little extra money, or better hotels? Right. So Pena went to Paco Alonso, and he told them, hey, Manny Guzman and Dos Caras, of all people, Dos Caras, Mil Máscaras' brother, who had actually he had suffered for so many years in wrestling, and I remember him coming to the dressing room and going, hey, we're starting a new union. It's for the boys, the old union. They used to steal money from us, blah, blah, blah. And he almost reminded me of what Castro did to Batista, or what Sandinistas did to the Somozas in Nicaragua. It was almost like, you were so tired of the old regime that anything new was better,
right.
Especially if the guy had a little iota of credibility, which Dos Caras did. But he went in there and just pilfered us even worse, so I just have, we just hated him. But we called Paco Alonso and we said, look, Manny Guzman and his syndicate, we called them out I'll never forget it. We were in the southeastern part of Mexico, which is really far from Mexico. It's almost like in the jungles, okay? It's really hot and humid, and the buses were terrible, the hotels were terrible, and Paco, flew in, and he sat down at the table, and everybody was happy. We're like, good, Manny Guzman is finally going to get his. And Paco pretended like he didn't even know what was going on, and Peña got us in a room, and he goes, they're in cahoots, they're both robbing us blind, and we're fucked. That was step one. Step two was, I was a world champion. I was the first Consejo Mundial Lucha Libre world champion. I beat Rayo de Jalisco, and I beat Cien Caras.
Right.
And Rayo was pissed because he was like the old guard that had been there for a lot of years, and he felt he had to win every match and could never lose one, kind of like a lot of the guys we see today in WCW. And they win and they complained to Paco, and they must have given a good argument because my belt took like 4 months to make, okay, because they were like these new belts. And my first title defense was in Monterrey against Cien Caras, my very first title defense. And I remember that Peña went up to Paco, and so did Carlos Elizondo, and they said, Konnan's hotter than hell right now. We need to keep the belt on him. And he said, nope. He said, debut y despedida, which means debut and like, not encore, but almost like debut and bye-bye. We're going to give it to him, we're going to take him. It's like a Mexican saying.
Right.
It's almost like if they give a young comedian a chance, on the Apollo, on Jay Leno.
Right.
Then afterwards he goes, how'd I do? In Mexico they'll go, debut y despedida. That means hello and goodbye.
Right.
You sucked, out of here. So that day I remember we were in front of La Virgen de Guadalupe, which is like a sacred saint in Mexico, and I was crying, and I was like, this is bullshit. He's making so much money off of him. I'm a goodwill ambassador for this promotion, because back then I didn't get high, I didn't take drugs, I didn't get drunk, I didn't do nothing.
Right.
I was just like, almost like they tell me Hunter is now, and I was just like, I was just mad, and Peña looks up at me and he goes, you know what, I'm talking to this guy in Televisa, he's a movie producer, and he wants me to start AAA. He goes, if I leave, will you leave? And I go, yeah, let's go. That's how we started AAA.
Eventually,
and Peña was mad. Peña wasn't just mad about me. Peña was also mad because he was busting his ass and he wasn't getting an extra money. And the worst part is, this place in Monterrey that I was in the main event was, packed.
Right.
And Paco wouldn't even pay attention to him, wouldn't listen to me. He was busy with Carlos Elizondo, the local promoter, finding out how to even make more money, And he was like, I'm busting my balls, and this guy it's almost like what Russo maybe complained about McMahon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's almost like you do all this stuff and you get no thanks for it and I've seen this happen because I did it with Peña. You become such a huge mark and you love so much the work you're doing, they almost feel that there comes a point where they think, fuck, this guy would probably do it for free. Right. So they take advantage of that, And I think that maybe happened to Russo, it happened to Peña, it happened to me. And it's happened to a lot of guys who love it so much. And then, and that's what Peña felt. He just felt he doesn't give a damn, and that's why he left.
You guys got the Televisa deal, right? And then you eventually brought in Ray Jr. and Psychosis to AAA.
Right. Yeah, what happened was when we started, we needed a lot of wrestlers, and I needed to, I was basically like the lead recruiter. So I brought in, he had a lot of people that weren't happy in EMLL because, like I said, Paco had his established old guys, which was like Rayo, Fuerza Guerrera, it was Máscara Año 2000, Universo 2000, it was guys like, who else was giving us a hard time back then? I can't think of a lot of the names right now, but they were just mad that they had all these years there. Ringo Mendoza, they were just mad that they had all these years and that they were giving us a push, And I would tell them, hey, you had your day in the sun, now it's our turn, And so they had their guys, especially from a place called Guadalajara. Guadalajara was almost like saying Tampa or, you know, West Texas, like the city that all these wrestlers come from. So Guadalajara was famous for having all these great wrestlers, and they had their little clique. You know, Bestia Salvaje was another guy. And they just didn't want to see, Dandy was actually was one of those guys, and they didn't want to see anybody take their place. And a lot of them were there more because of loyalty and because of tenure than because of talent. So I was basically like the lead recruiter. You know, I needed to find established talent, and I needed to find new talent. And I told him, and TJ, you know, he wanted good-looking guys because Peña's another guy that kind of likes guys. And so he wanted like a lot of good-looking guys. And Psychosis, young, good-looking. Rey Mysterio, young, good-looking. And I brought him them, and I brought him Eddie Guerrero, and I brought him Love Machine. And, you know, we just started to bring in all this talent, and we were just hot. You know, we were just workaholics. Me and him were just workaholics. That's all we did was live, breathe, talk, sleep wrestling.
Right. Actually, I want to backtrack for a second. You also worked a shot for WCW Starrcade 90.
Yeah.
I think it was a tag team tournament or something like that,
yeah.
Right? Was it a one-time deal, basically?
No. What had happened was that, who called me over there? Jim, might have been this guy called Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett. He called me. He said, you know, I heard about you in Mexico. You know, I'd like to bring you down here and take a look at you. So when I came down, they put me on some house shows against Bobby Eaton.
Right.
And Bobby Eaton's so professional because I was nobody. I mean, I was absolutely nobody. And he actually put me over. Every match, never gave me a hard time. And I returned the favor for him. He doesn't remember this, but about 2 years ago, and I was really hot in the Wolfpack.
Right.
We went to this place near his hometown. It might have been in Alabama. And, you know, they told me, you're going to put him over. And I said, no, I want to put him over. And I never reminded him or nothing like that, but I'm reminding him now, you know, I want to thank you for that. And I put him over. And I remember Arn Anderson, who's good friends with him, goes, hey, that meant a lot to him because he was near his house.
Right.
And I just didn't want to tell everybody why it was. And he might have even forgotten because he's so professional, you know what I'm saying? And so what happened was I was in Starrcade with Rey Mysterio, and we first wrestled Chris Adams, who didn't want to do shit. And he still doesn't want to do shit to this day. I mean, he in his mind, he still thinks he's like, you know, in whatever that thing was in Texas, world class. And so I think I think Norman Smiley did the job, who I thought had a good attitude, good physique, and great technical facilities. And I just, you know, invited him to come to Mexico, which he did. And then after that, we went against the Steiners, which was funny because I'd always admired Scott because I thought for his size, he was the most explosive, offensive wrestler there was. And it was funny because we went in the dressing room, he didn't want to fix anything, talk about anything, or do anything. Really, Rick was the one that went in there, and he was talking for, like, both of them. And I remember I told Rick I wanted to put him in an Indian deathlock, but he didn't know how to get out of it, and I just told him to go through my feet, because that's really the only way you can get out of it.
Right.
And I think he kind of respected me after that. And I know that Brian Pillman wanted me to show him a lot of Mexican moves, and because he told me he was a huge fan of Super Astro. Kevin Nash actually told me that he was in WCW at the time. I don't know with what name or what he was doing, and that I never even talked to him. And who else do I remember was here back then? What I do remember is that some guy was the booker, and Dusty Rhodes. Oh, I know who it was. It was that guy.
Jim Herd, Kid Fry.
No, Ole Anderson.
Oh, Ole, yeah. Ole.
Yeah, who was like one of the rudest guys I've ever met. And he was like, I remember he brought me into his office. He goes, hey, what do you like about WCW? And this is like one of these old Southern guys,
right.
You know, that like really old school.
He's old school. Yeah.
And I'd never met anybody like that in my life. You know, what do you like about WCW? And I was like, well, I just think that, you know, you have better wrestlers in WWF. You know, you got the Flair and you got the Steiners. And I went down the list because they had like great technical wrestlers at that time. I don't want to hear all that bullshit. Why do you want to be here? Is it the money? Is it the fame? Is it? I go, I just told you, you know. And he was just like very rude, you know, very to the point, very brazen. And so I don't know what happened because I wasn't into any of the politics
right.
back then. I know that either he left or he got fired, and I think Dusty Rhodes was coming in. And I remember Jim Ross told me, he goes, I want to make you a team with Flying Brian, so don't leave. So I went home for a couple months, and I'll never forget it. Pat Patterson from WWF I think he got my number from Red Bastien. He kept calling me, and I kept telling him, you know what, sir? I go, I'm gonna go to WCW, but he kept calling, and I'll never forget it. This is what really sold me on it. It was like New Year's Eve of all days, and I was watching the Miami Hurricanes, and he called me on New Year's Eve, and he goes, well, I just want to see how you're doing, if you've signed up or anything, you know, come down, Vince wants to talk to you. And I just thought that was cool that they kept on, and WCW wouldn't even give me a phone call. So I said, you know what, I'll be there next week. He said, you know, we'll have a limo waiting for you. And at that time, I just thought that was so cool. I'd never been in a limo in my life. And I just said, all right. And the day I got there, believe it or not, the Undertaker's guy was there, Percy Pringle.
Right.
He was they were picking him up the same day. And I remember him telling me, oh, this is a great Christmas present for me. He goes, because I'm out of work. My wife's going to be happy. And look how big he got.
Right.
But, and we both went. We saw Vince. He actually didn't see him. I did. And he, you know, I remember Vince going, you know, I was telling him all these ideas I had. And he goes, you're a breath of fresh air. He said, you know, Owen Hart, you're going to take Owen Hart's spot. He goes, but he was a little bit hard to deal with because he could only wrestle with certain guys. I don't know what that meant. He says, and then we tried out another guy called Brady Boone. He goes, but he didn't work out, and I never really saw him, so I can't really.
Is this the Max Moon gimmick?
Yeah, the Max Moon gimmick, and you know, he gave me a job.
I want to talk before we talk about Vince, because I was going to talk about that later. But I want to go back to your memories of your retirement match, I guess, with CN Karras that you over like 48,000 people.
Yeah, that was actually 58,000.
58,000.
Yeah, what happened was that was basically I just wanted to do something different. I just wanted to do something. I wanted to do something like what Hogan and Cyndi Lauper and them did. I wanted to bring wrestling to mainstream.
Right.
So at that time I had a rap record, and the #1 rated variety show was called Veronica Castro, and she was actually on for like 3.5 hours every night, most watched show in Mexico. So what we did is we had a show. We brought all the wrestlers on. And you know, the most popular wrestlers, and we also had like an exhibition match there, and wrestling was hot. I mean, that's almost like if you brought on a show right now, you know, The Rock and Hunter and all these guys, you know, and people started to find out about them, you know, on a personal basis. So people started to find out how funny we could be and how intelligent we could be and blah blah blah. So in there, me and Cien Cara started to go at each other, and I alluded to the fact that his wife was coming on to me. So we got into a big fight right there on the show, but she really wasn't sure what was going on. So she got really scared, and you know, it went all over the news. And then we went on the Cristina show, which is hugely popular in the Spanish networks, and she loved it too, you know, because you know, the fans get into it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it just became so big, it became so huge that, believe it or not, on the CBS Evening News, that's what it's comparable to. They were there live, and they had an interview with us before we went into the ring, and they had the results right when it happened. I mean, that's how big, that's the magnitude, and the stars around the ring were like incredible. We didn't even have to invite any of them. I mean, we had like the top comedians, the top singers, the top baseball players. They were all around the ring. Even when I went out, I was like, wow. And I remember that Cien Cara, and he had been in at that time in the business about maybe 15, 16 years, and I had been in about maybe 4 or 5, and he was really nervous, and I remember that I wasn't nervous at all. I was actually mad, and because he was supposed to retire, but he said, if I retire, I'm a man of my word, and I'm not coming back. And
did you get a lot of heat?
I got tremendous heat, because they didn't do it how I told them they should have done it. They didn't bring me back how they should have brought me back. And at that time, I got into a fight with Pena about it, and but it was 58,000 people. They actually tried to have a match for the first time ever, AAA and Arena Mexico, first time ever in history, and they were only able to draw like 20,000 people, and that was papered. So that just tells you the magnitude of that. I mean, we did a good job. We went on every variety show, every talk show, you know, and it looked like a shoot. Everywhere we went, it was funny.
Right.
We had security for him, for me in the airport. Whenever we saw a cameraman or reporter, we tried to go at it. And I mean, we just made them believe it was a shoot, and they didn't know any better. And it just had that feel to it, like, I think something's gonna happen, you know. What
are your memories of your feud with Jake Roberts?
That guy's too much. Well, besides the fact that we went to the sports arena in LA, and we drew 17,000 people. There were 8,000 people, and this is a shoot. They were actually standing outside, and that was, I later read from Meltzer that was the biggest house in LA in 25 years. And I don't even think WWF's been able to get that many in there. But even if they did, even if they have been able to do it since then, just the fact that a Mexican promotion went in there with the only TV is basically west of the Mississippi, because hardly nobody watches Galavision East because they're Puerto Ricans and Cubans, and Galavision is basically a show for Mexicans, and there is a difference. You know, it was just mind-boggling, because even to see AAA, you had to pay, because Galavision isn't free. So, you know, it was pay TV, only basically, you know, west of the Mississippis, no Americans, and you know, Jake the Snake had interfered in my retirement match. That's why I lost, because of him. So this was basically supposed to be like my revenge. And never, ever, ever, ever did we think that was going to happen. I mean, that place was packed. And I think at that time, DDP was like Jake the Snake's valet.
Right.
And I remember that the people were so enraged that they were throwing diapers with shit in it, and cups of urine, and nacho cheese, and pennies, and pesos, and he just refused to come out, you know. And I went in there and I go, bro, you can't leave this promotion standing like this. I go, that's what you want, heat. When have you seen heat like this? This is you, but I'm afraid I'm gonna get hurt. You know, it was all basically a work to get more money. But I go, I'm just telling you right now, they're gonna put you in jail if you don't come out. And I go, breach of contract. I'm just letting you know, which was bullshit. I just had to say something so he'd come out, because the place was going nuts. And I'm pretty sure DDP probably talked some sense in him, because DDP was very gung-ho. And they came out and the place just went nuts. Of course, he couldn't do anything, but to me, just the fact that I got to stand and be next to and hear some of his sea stories was great. I mean, that guy was, I mean, he was just a lot of trouble. We finally had to get rid of him because, you know, he was drinking, and it was like prostitutes every night, and some underage hooker stole his wedding ring and his passport, and then his wife came on tour one time, and she was hot at him because Sherry Martel was on the tour, and I guess they'd kicked it before, and he was just a bag of surprises. And you know, and he was like just too much.
Right. What are your memories of Art Bar?
But let me just finish with Jake Roberts. Okay. Without a doubt, one of the smartest men I've ever met.
For psychology?
Just for psychology, just for sitting down and telling you a story about, you know, wrestling. He's got great stories about wrestling, about life, you know. To be able to talk about life, you have to have suffered, and he suffered a lot, you know, and he's a very complex man with obviously a lot of demons, but I still have a lot of respect for him. I would never even make fun of him, because I do respect him as a man. I mean, it's easy to talk about somebody when they're down, but for him to get down, something must have happened to him, you know, and I know a lot of shit that has happened to him. Right. He's told me in confidence, yeah. Right. You know, and Art Bar, there's another guy. He's without a doubt the most entertaining wrestler that I've ever been around. You would have to have been there live to see what he could do. I mean, he could make you laugh, cry, get pissed off. I mean, he could make you, I mean, he was just incredible. He was a guy that showed me more about wrestling than anybody, because I didn't know how to work the camera, because in Mexico you don't work the camera. We really didn't do that many interviews. You know, he was a guy that told me, you know, you're in your, you know, you gotta, the minute you get into the ring, you have to be in your gimmick. Don't be in your gimmick 24 hours. When you're in your ring, you have to be in your gimmick. Because I used to like to travel with him and Eddie, and I would break kayfabe. He goes, bro, he goes, you're fucking up our ability to make money. And I would get mad at him. And it was funny, because me, him, and Eddie are tremendous hotheads. I don't know who's hotter, but one day I would tell Art, I'm going to go in there and beat the fuck out of Eddie, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And then the next day, Eddie would tell me, I'm going to beat the fuck out of Art, and don't stop me, you know, and then Art would want to beat me up, and we were literally trying to beat each other up every single day. We were so pissed at each other half the time. But there was a lot of camaraderie and a lot of respect. But Art, I mean, I was the most charismatic guy to me, I thought, in Mexico. But Art probably was more charismatic than me. He just loved the business, and his big dream was to come back and put it up WCW's ass, to show the United States that they had fucked up with him. You know what I'm saying? That was his whole thing, and his ability to move a crowd, his ability to just get a reaction out of people was incredible.
Louis Piccoli, while we're on the same subject.
Luis Piccoli, very, very, very hardworking guy, a guy that just loved the business, a lot like Art Bar. Didn't have his charisma, but just loved the business, knew about the business. For being so big, he could take great bumps. You know, I loved working with him. Whenever we had independent shows, I would always ask to work with him, or whenever he worked with AAA, he always got good, quick, easy heat without it having to be cheap.
Right.
He just knew a lot about the business, loved the business, and like a lot of guys, including Art Barr, he became a product of the business. And by that I mean that you're on the road, you're depressed, you're alone, you're hurt, and you know, a lot of guys snick and go, oh well, fuck, you know, why do these guys, you know, like I watch a lot of the BH1 Behind the News,
right.
and invariably every single artist you look at gets hooked up on either alcohol or drugs. I mean, look at those shows,
right,
and you know, and almost every single one just gets hooked on it because you know, you have to go in front of a crowd and you have to perform whether you're hurt or you're sad or you're depressed or you're tired, and it's so much energy that you have to be channeling, and then when you get back you got to be able to shut it down, and then you have to wake up and do it all over
again. What are your
again.
views on painkillers, drugs, and wrestling? Part of the business?
No, it shouldn't be part of the business. It's the promoters who have squeezed us like oranges, and we're oranges. And when Konnan is too hurt or too old or too political or whatever, they just throw me away and they grab another orange. And that's the promoters who don't give a damn about us, you know. And they put us on the road and they fucking work us to death. And you know, there's no other sport that I know of, with maybe the exception of tennis, and there might be another one, but even they're not as physical as us. That's on year round. You know, these guys get time off. They get chartered in private jets. You know, here we are at the, you know, carrying our own bags and having to try to find a later flight, and you know, we're depressed because we're not at home, and you know, it's bullshit. You know, and the thing is that almost every wrestler's a mark, because we love to be on TV, we love to win money, we love to go out and party, we love just being around the boys, we love performing, and they take advantage of that, you know, and that's why we're all fucked up, you know, and we still don't get paid enough money.
What were your initial impressions about Vince McMahon?
You know, I had heard so much about him that, you know, how he could be a swindler, that I was leery, but I just found him super charming, super intelligent, I was like in awe of him, you know, because I'd seen him so much on TV as a commentator, and I knew that he knew his shit because he had made all these fucking stars, you know, and that wasn't luck. I mean, you could say one or two guys were luck, but you can't have a chain of, you know, 7-8 years of that good of luck, you know, Macho Man and Honky Tonk and you know, and all the Demolition and, you know, all the stuff that he had done. You know, he was just, to me, I just really felt I was in front of a genius, and I gave him all his respect, and he was real cool with me. I know that right now he's mad at me, but I just feel that, you know, he's a genius.
Do you think your bridge is burnt there, or do you...
No, I just feel that he would make me come back and make me work double to prove it to him again, and I don't know if I'm that hungry to work double again, you know. It's just like when I went in there, I had an idea for a robot outfit that I had seen in Japan. Max Moon. Yeah, and it blew smoke and it blew fire, and you know, I remember he would go to the ring and he had me dancing around it because he wanted me to dance, and I remember Scott Hall used to make fun of it, and he you know, he invested a lot of money and a lot of time, and I could already hear, like, you know, people bitching. I remember Pat Patterson, who always took good care of me, and I appreciate that, Pat, man, in the way some of you may think. But he just would tell me, you know what, you got to quit telling people how good it is in Mexico, because it looks like you're boasting. Because people would tell me, hey, can you get me work in Mexico? How good is it? And how good is it over there? And I would tell them, I'm making a lot of money, I'm doing good. You know, Love Machine's making a lot of money. And you know, I guess I would get back to him and go, oh, Konnan came here and he's boasting, you know, because that's how the guys are. And so he just told me, you know, don't say shit to nobody. They're going to give you a push. He goes, a lot of people don't even want you to be here because you're so... Because back then was really the land of the giants. It was Road Warrior and Ultimate Warrior and Hercules Hernandez. I mean, these guys were just, you know, barbarian. They're just incredible. You know, I was very small compared to them. He goes, and he's really going to give you a push. And what happened is that I would only go to TV tapings. I never made house shows. So, you know, they hated me even more because I wasn't on the road with them. And they would let me bring in guys like Art Barr, like Rambo, like Jerry Estrada. They would let them, you know, people were like, why is he getting favorite treatment? Because they would let me fly him in. And then finally they just hooked me up with Louis Spicoli, and Louis was happy because he said, I know they're going to give you a push, and now here's my chance to be a star. And then I remember I went into Vince McMahon and I go, you know, all I want is a guaranteed contract. And he goes, the only guy that's got a guaranteed contract is Hulk Hogan. I go, you know, with all due respect, I'd like one too. Not because I think I'm him, but just to guarantee, you know, I'm going to leave something big in Mexico to come here. I'd like to have some sort of guarantee. He says, I can't do that. And then I just told him, I go, you know, I'm doing soap operas there. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I just said, fuck it. And I just didn't show up anymore. And then I guess one day Paul Diamond, you know, said, oh, I fit into this and I can be him. And they told him, well, try to do everything he does, which obviously he couldn't do it because he didn't know Mexican style, you know. And I guess for being a punk ass and trying to do that. He punked himself at the end. But, basically I just quit coming.
There's also a funny story, I guess, backstage with you and Vince in front of the boys, something like the Jushin Liger suit. You made a comment to Vince. He said, you said something to Vince like maybe it looks like Jushin Liger, and Vince tried to play it off like you didn't know who Jushin was or something like that, and he just was in Japan, I guess 3 weeks earlier, posing with Jushin in the press or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never heard about that.
Okay, I don't know.
The one that I know I got a lot of heat for, because Scott Hall brought this up at least 10 to 15 fucking times. I guess this guy, Arnold Skolin, must have been in the Marines or something.
Right.
And I don't got nothing against the guy. I didn't even know who the guy was, And one time I drove from Boston to Cape Cod, which I guess, or Hyannisport.
The cab thing?
Huh?
The cab?
Yeah, the cab thing. So that, I'm going to tell you exactly how that went, and I'll probably look like a dick for saying it, but that's how it went. They had me basically, instead of taking the suit in the truck like they take everybody else's, they would actually have me fly it with me. So here I was with like 6 pieces of humongous luggage, because it was like this big head, this big suit, these big legs, these attachments, and then like these oxygen tanks in the back and shit. And so it was like a lot of, it was a lot of shit to carry around. And the reason I was carrying around is because they kept flying it back to California for modifications. They should have just flew the guy over to New York, had him fix it there, and kept him there till he fixed it. But no, they'd fly me with the shit and fly me back with it. It was like a huge pain in the ass. So basically one day I got in a cab and I drove from Boston to either Hyannisport or Cape Cod, whichever it was a long way away.
Right.
And I got there, and this guy Arnold, I got here, and Arnold Skolin goes, all right. He goes, where's the stuff? And I go, it's, where's your suit? And I go, it's outside. And then he goes, all right, we'll take it out. I go, well, somebody has to pay for the cab, And, my understanding was they would take care of cab, hotel, and my nightly,
draw.
My nightly draw. And I guess he got pissed and probably said, I'm assuming, who does this asshole think he is, having me pay the cab? Well, he paid the cab, paid for the suit, and then that story spread like wildfire, And I remember screaming, how can you tell Arnie, an ex-Marine, to go pay for your cab? I go, well, who did he want me to tell? I mean, I didn't even know who the hell was who.
Right,
I didn't know what Arnold's job was, what that Garvin's guy's job was. Right. I just didn't know. I didn't know who they were. And to me, I only talked to Pat Patterson and the Vince McMahon. So as far as I was concerned, I knew who they were, and I knew who Gorilla was, because Gorilla was on the go position, and he was the one that told me to go out. Other than them, I really didn't know who anybody was. That was almost like bringing, Scott Hall to Mexico and expecting him to know who the next 3 guys in power are. It's not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To me, if I got heat for that, I don't give a fuck.
How'd you wind up in ECW? And I don't know. I know I'm definitely skipping. Maybe we'll come back to it later. The AAA pay-per-view, When Worlds Collide. I think it was,
The When Worlds Collide was before ECW.
Right, it was definitely before ECW. I mean, like, what happened with that? I mean, it was a huge success, probably one of the best pay-per-views of all time.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Ron Scholar, I guess, was promoter and helped you guys, and then it just never took off from there, I guess.
Yeah, Ron Scholar, who was a guy that I think was one of the first guys that helped Public Enemy, famous rap group, get off their feet. He loved Lucha Libre. He would watch it on TV, and he said, let me promote this because I think, we can draw people. So he got together with this guy in Washington, D.C., called Daryl, this other lady, and they were like the managers of Salt and Pepper. So they got together and they came to California, and they made a lot of money in the first 4 or 5 shows. I know they did. They made a lot of money, and basically, I guess one of them knew Gary Juster, must have been Ron Scholar, and Gary Juster said, why don't we do a pay-per-view for the Latin American audience, which they hardly didn't do any promotion for, and it still did a good buy rate. And I remember at the end, I was supposed to cut a promo, and from what I understood, Eric Bischoff said, I don't want them doing anything else, the show's over. So, they really didn't help us. They didn't do any promotional thing. And that was a thing that, me and Pena booked, and it was one of the best pay-per-views that I've ever seen.
How'd you wind up coming to ECW?
ECW was, I had known Paulie from a tour we did in Singapore when we were both like in between jobs, and he was in, I might have still been in AAA, but I wanted to kind of travel the world, and we were in Singapore and we were in the Philippines, and this was put together by John Arezzi, who John Arezzi would always hook me up for like little shows. And and I had met Paul Heyman also in '89 when I was in WCW, because I remember when I met him, he goes, well, what nationality are you? I go, my father's Cuban, my mother's Puerto Rican. He goes, oh, really? He goes, do you want to know how they met? He goes, how? And I go, trying to pick each other's pockets. And then he goes, can I use that on TV? And I go, yeah. And he used it. And then from then, me and him liked each other. Then in Singapore, his room actually got flooded because of something. I don't know what happened in there. And I kept calling him and I kept saying, hey, once you return your rowboat or whatever, if you get a chance, give me a call. And then we just started to talk and bullshit. We were making fun of all the old guys that were on the tour and just making fun of all the stuff that young, I would say hip, cool guys make fun of older guys who still haven't gotten it, And then he told me, I'm going to start this promotion. I want to bring in Hugh Morris. And he wanted to call Hugh Morris the man without no face or some shit like that. I remember he told me and I was like, what type of name is that? Or the man with no name or something like that. And then he wanted to bring him in. He wanted to bring Pat Tanaka. He asked me about Eddie Guerrero. I said, he's incredible. I told him about our bar. So he was going to use some of my guys. He started the promotion for whatever reason. He never called them. And when ECW started to do good, I called him and go, hey, motherfucker, did you forget about me? And then he said, well, I'll get back to you. And basically I called him because I liked the style and I wanted to learn it so I could bring it to Mexico. And I couldn't go the 1 week. And I said, well, you know what? I'll send you Rey Mysterio and I'll send you Psychosis and I'll bet you they'll rock the house. And he goes, yeah, I've heard they're pretty good. I said, when you see them, you see they're better than pretty good. And I guess they tore that place down.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Memory of your matches, I guess you worked a couple times with Sandman.
Yeah. He was very respectful. I think woman would tell him in front of me, she would go, yeah, he's a big star in Mexico. Because I guess he was known for whacking guys when he was drunk and being pretty...
unprofessional. Yeah,
I wouldn't say unprofessional, just being careless, Because I met Sandman and he to me is a great guy, real cool guy. Yeah. And when he came to WCW, he lost a lot of weight, turned into a really good wrestler. He really surprised me because when he was in ECW, he used to take ridiculously ungraceful bumps, and I was like, wow, if this guy actually knew how to fall, he knew what he was doing, he'd be great. And when he came to WCW, he was taking great bumps, really had to learn the psychology, and he should have got a raw deal, but I wrestled him, that was good. One time I was going to do something with Cactus Jack, and it didn't pan out. And then we did a joint ECW AAA show in Chicago. And I remember Cactus Jack hit me with the hardest chair shot I've ever felt in my life. And I go, bro, what are you doing? He goes, I'm just trying to protect your gimmick, Konnan. And I go, forget about that. Just don't ever hit me that hard again. And but ECW was cool. It was a great atmosphere, great camaraderie, great rapport. Paulie, who I always admired as a genius, and I always used to tell him, how, where did you come up with all these ideas? Because I really do believe that he revolutionized wrestling, and a lot of the stuff he did was stolen by WCW and WWF. He was definitely cutting edge, way ahead of his time. And I love those angles he did, with Raven and the McGillicuddy girl, and that they were lesbians, and then that she was pregnant and the Tommy Dreamer thing. That was pure soap opera. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that stuff was great. The way he turned Taz. Just a lot of the stuff he did, he really knew and Antonio Peña's good like this, and he really knew how to hide people's weaknesses, and he really knew how to accentuate people's strengths, and he knew how to hide a bad match as a long angle, and that stuff I learned from Peña. But Paulie, just very revolutionary, very ahead of his time, very cutting edge, and I'm not saying this because I know that you guys know him and you're going to tell him, that's just how it is, and I had fun there, but the minute I got there, Kevin Sullivan was already talking to me through Nancy Sullivan.
Right. You said in an interview, I think it might have been the Wade Keller's The Torch or something like that you and Sabu thought Paulie was the biggest liar. And I was wondering if you regret ever saying that statement.
Okay, I don't think it was I don't think it was when the Torch interview, because if he had ever lied to me, it wasn't then. I know Sabu was mad at him because I remember when he went to Japan. And I remember that Paulie was mad at him, and I told Paulie, and I know Paulie will remember this. I go, Paulie, bro, this guy's the most insane wrestler I've ever seen. The fans love him. Okay, he fucked up, big deal. I go, just bring him back because the people are gonna love him. And 2 weeks later, we were in the dressing room. He goes, look who's over there. And I just looked at him and I shook his hand. I go, that's cool. Because I knew that people wanted him. But I remember we were in Chicago and Paulie was mad about him about something. I don't know if you remember right. And I remember Public Enemy was breaking every table in sight. I remember Sabu was almost crying because he's very emotional about shit like this. Right. Because for better or for worse, he is a guy that came out with this,
Right.
And I remember asking, why do you even do all this crazy shit? And he was like, well, you know, I told my uncle I have to be different, and I am, and he is, you know, and he did start like his own little genre. And I told him, and he was really mad because I guess Paulie and him were like at odds.
Right.
And at this AAA ECW show, like Public Enemy was like breaking every table, and he was like crying, and he was almost crying. He was like, "Fuck, you know, if I have to, I'll fight these motherfuckers." He goes, "That's my fucking gimmick. That's my fucking gimmick." And then he said something about, the thing about Paulie is he told me he'd never do this again, and he's lied to me so many times. And I think when I made that comment, I think I was maybe mad because either A, I think Paulie was going to bring some more people in the ECW that I had asked him to bring from AAA, and he kept telling me he would, and he just gave me like the runaround, because me and him really haven't talked for like in maybe 4 years or something like that. Right. Probably about 4 years. We just finally talked maybe a week ago for 45 minutes. So at that time I felt, since he was giving me the runaround and not talking to me, I probably felt that, you know, he was a liar, you know.
Right. Memories of your World Peace Festival dealing and with Inoki.
World Peace Festival, that was a terrible show, terribly booked.
Right.
And I just remember that the people really didn't get into it that much. And I wrestled Jericho and Bam Bam. Remember, Bam Bam wasn't too happy about doing a job. Remember, Jericho was just like really happy. And because this to him was like a big chance for like Bischoff and everybody to see him. And I remember trying to talk to the WCW guys, because I just joined WCW, and they were all like, "Fuck you, you're not even with us. Go to the Mexican side," you know. And that's just sad, you know. That whole racism thing has always had me so perturbed, because I've always felt assholes come in all colors, you know.
Right.
And I don't trip on shit like that. But there's not really any real memories that are even worth commenting.
You started up your own promotion, Tijuana, Promo Azteca, I believe, right?
Right.
And you know, how did that come about? And do you think that you gave up on it too soon, or I mean, did you do everything you wanted to do there?
No, we did that's basically how we broke up. That's how me and Pena started our breakup, right. And then Eric Bischoff broke up the Promo Azteca. What happened is that there were a lot of guys in the promotion that needed work, because we had like a lot of guys. And I told Pena, I go, "Look, let me go to Tijuana. I'm from there. I know the people. The people like an American style of wrestling more than Mexican." I go, "Just let me go in there and let's go to war with our competition." There were two other promoters there at the time. And I went in there, and Damien and Halloween helped me with a lot of stuff. And I remember I grabbed the microphone. I go, "This is the first show because at that time it was AAA. Well, this is the first show for AAA. I go, and get ready to see a radical change from anything you've ever seen. From here on out, wrestling will never be the same again." And that day we went off. I think one of the problems I had, and I talked to somebody about this, and they said, is you gave them so much so fast, because like the first day there was fire, there were tables, somebody got hung. I mean, it was just ladders. It was like the people actually left, because I remember I would actually get like a tape, like a camera like this, had two guys, and I'd actually watch fans' reactions, and I would watch the wrestlers, and people were like stunned. And I was like, fuck, they don't even like this. But it wasn't that, they were stunned. They were like, am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I basically had to let them digest it. I had to pull back. And not be so extreme, you know, or be so orthodox, you know. And they were just loving it. And then from there they brought it to Monterrey, like Halloween and Damien and Park and Pierroth. When they would go to Monterrey, they brought it there. Then they brought it to Laredo.
Right.
And the next thing you know, it spread like wildfire around the whole country. And then AAA, of course, I brought it to AAA. And it was like incredible that people were going nuts, you know, because it was no more traditional.
Right.
I put you in a hold, you put me in a hold. There, 3 guys happened to beat 3 other guys at the same time, you know, which is very hokey. That's one of the problems with Mexican wrestling. And we were doing killer houses. I mean, the competition was paying off the government officials, so I couldn't run shows at the historic building.
Right.
I was running it in places that I'd never even run wrestling, and I was still selling out. I mean, I could not be stopped. So then I started to do shows in Mexicali, which is 3 hours away. Then I did in Ensenada, which is an hour away. And then I did in Tecate, which is 45 minutes away. And everywhere I did good, you know. and it was just now the style. People knew because we were using ballets, we were using girls fighting against each other. Just a lot of stuff Paulie did.
Right.
I've just refined it for Mexican taste plus stuff that I thought of. And that's basically what it was. And you know, we'd get suspended and it'd be on the front newspaper, and I had referees fighting against each other, and it was just like crazy. And then when I left AAA and I went to Promo Azteca, that was my style there, except I changed the Mexican rules. You know how like 3 guys always beat 3 guys at the same time?
Right.
I would have 1 guy beat 1 guy, then like I'd have a bad guy beat a good guy, then I had a good guy beat a bad guy, so now it was tie.
Right.
And then the last 2 would eliminate each other, which made it a lot more interesting, you know? And I'm surprised. That was like one of the things I thought I left for Mexico, and they've never picked up on it. When I go back, I'm going to bring that back up. But the ECW style is hugely popular, so much that now in Arena Mexico, for the first time, they fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it. For the first time, they've been doing one ECW style match for like the last 6 months.
Your initial impressions of Eric Bischoff?
Eric Bischoff?
Yeah.
The initial impression is very intelligent, very honest, very savvy. He's a very cool guy. You know, I just thought he was very cool, very hip, he wasn't as much under pressure as he was later on. You know, I don't think he knew, you know, what was going to happen with the Nash. You know, it was almost like he was here and here was Nash. Da-dun, Hawk, da-dun, Hogan, da-dun, Piper, da-dun, Macho, da-dun, dun, dun, dun. He really had no idea what he was about to get into.
What were your expectations going into WCW for yourself?
To become a huge star to the Latino and minority community as a whole, like all the people that listen to hip hop, whether they were white boys, because you know hip hop's not just for Latinos and blacks. You look at the Eminem, and you look at Kid Rock, and you look at Limp Bizkit, and you look at the influence that hip hop has had on them. You have a lot of cool white boys that are down with that. You know, Filipinos, Hawaiians, Puerto Ricans. I wanted the hip hop crowd. You know, I didn't give a and my whole thing was, that's who I wanted.
You won the U.S. belt pretty quickly, and you dropped it to Flair, I guess. What are some of your memories of working with Flair?
Just that it was a huge honor, but he likes to call the whole match, and a lot of the stuff he was saying in the ring was like old style terms, which I didn't understand, which you hardly don't hear anymore. But
when you had the U.S. belt, actually, they kind of buried you because you had the belt and they never really put it on TV. They didn't give you any promo time, and they kept in like opening matches and stuff too. So
they just didn't know what to do with me. I just think Kevin Sullivan was just trying to get as much talent as he could, and he was getting good talent, Eddie, Benoit. But then once he had it, nobody wanted to work with us. And then when he put us against each other, he didn't understand our style, and he didn't know what to do with us. It's almost like if I bought right now a Porsche and and a Lamborghini and fucking, a Viper, and I don't know how to drive a car. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was like he had too much talent, and he didn't know really what to do with them.
What were your initial impressions of the locker room?
When I first got in, you could already feel there was a huge difference between the guys on top and bottom, just the way they talked to, the way they hung out. It wasn't like ECW, or like even the top stars, which I think was Sabu, Raven, Sandman, Cactus. Just a lot of camaraderie.
Was there a lot of clicks?
Yeah.
Right. What about Hogan? What were your initial impressions of Hogan and Kevin Nash?
I'd already met Hogan in WWF.
Right.
And I've never been a big Hogan fan. Like, I always liked Macho Man. I was always a big Macho Man fan. I always liked the flamboyant, Hogan was just like, why is he still wrestling? That was my whole thing. It was like nothing really bad against him. It's just like, have you not made enough money, or why are you still here? We've actually had good conversations. Believe it or not, he's actually he's very intelligent, but just because you're intelligent doesn't translate into cool. He doesn't really know what's cool. He really doesn't know what's hip. If somebody doesn't tell him, he doesn't really know. But as far as business, as far as like overall intelligence, if you sat down with him and talked to him, he's very astute and he's very smart.
Right. Kevin Nash.
Everybody's seen that. Probably one of the most charming, wittiest, smartest individuals you've ever met, except he thinks he's smarter than he really is, and he thinks that just because he was a booker, that just because you're smart, that equates good booking. Well, to be a good booker, number one, you can't just go and help all your friends, because there's just people that there's just wrestlers that the fans don't like, and you have to be able to understand that and not just say, oh, because you've been my friend for 10 years, or because I like you, because you drink beer with me, or because you go weight training with me, I'm going to make you a star, because people are going to shit all over that. Like, I'll give you an example. Everybody knows about, this huge feud between me and Vampiro. Well, me and Vampiro and me and Pierre Roth and me and Moscow Sagrada hated each other with a passion. But when Vampiro didn't want to be an EML anymore, Arena Mexico, and he went to AAA, and he didn't want to be anymore, and he called Norman Smiley, who's his best friend, and said, tell Konnan I want to come there. I told him, okay, he can only come under the following condition, because Vampiro is infamous for not going to shows. I mean, just infamous for just not going to shows or holding up the promoter at the last minute for money. He can deny it all he wants, but that's the truth. And I told him, okay, if you come here, you're going to have to sign a contract that if you do not go to a show, you're going to reimburse the promoter for all his publicity.
Right.
And of course he didn't want to do that, so he was making all the shows until at the end when I wasn't in the office anymore, and he was doing whatever he wanted. But we made that pact, and Vampiro was still in the main events. Vampiro wanted to do like Japanese style matches, and I did that for him, and he wanted to wrestle against certain guys. I did that for him because I knew Vampiro was business. I knew Pierre Roth was business. I knew Moscow Sagrada was business. Not so much that they were businessmen per se, but they were good for business, and they drew people. And okay, once they did their match, believe me and Vampiro never talked to each other. Me and Pierre Roth never talked to each other. We just didn't talk. But when it was time to go, we did it. Unlike WCW, I don't like that guy. He's a better promo man than me, and he might get over more than me. So everybody in WCW was trying to hold back anybody that they felt was like let me see. That wasn't any threat to them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But Nash, you saw his booking.
Right.
It sucked.
Yeah.
And he just thought that, because he is smart. Nash is smart, and he is hip as hell. And Nash knows how to be hip with the black guys.
Right.
He knows how to be hip with the white boy, with the country boy. He grew up in Detroit, so there's a soul part of him. He played basketball in Tennessee. He was a bouncer in Atlanta.
Right.
And he's very worldly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I think that, I think learning from Scott Hall, learning from Shawn Michaels, and learning from some of the guys he's got a lot of inbred and a lot of how would we put this? Just a lot of built-in paranoia, you know what I'm saying? And just insecure about a lot of stuff, even though he doesn't look like he is. But best guy in the world, will charm you to death. And but if you cross him, look out.
You feuded with Dungeon of Doom for a while. Do you think Kevin Sullivan held you down a little bit?
I just think that Kevin Sullivan made me a lot of promises. And I've never said this in publication. I've never said it on film, but I'm going to say it now. Kevin Sullivan, the way he got me out of ECW, because I was happy there. And I'm sure if you ever tape Chris Benoit Woman, she will tell you, because she's about the only other person that knew about this. I think it was only me, Woman, Kevin, and Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio might have forgotten. The way he got me over there is I wanted to be in ECW. I loved that place. And he told me that I was going to feud with Hogan. And then that we were going to go to Mexico, and we were going to go there as a tag team. And I even remember Hogan telling me one day, hey, brother, I'm ready to go to Mexico and make a lot of money. So I was thinking to myself, this is going to be cool, And I don't think I've ever wrestled Hogan in my life. I've been in the ring, I think, like by him when I was in the NWO, like a tag team partner. And I'm sure I've taken a million bumps for him. But I've never wrestled him. We've never gone against each other. And to me, it's not a big thrill. I just thought that, it isn't like I'd rather wrestle Ric Flair than him. But I just thought that, I knew that if I wrestled him, he was the man, and that meant, a good push for me. But, women used to tell me, you're going to wrestle Hogan, they've got plans for you, Kevin's working on it. Who knows, maybe he did try to do it, and somebody along the way. Yeah, so I can't say that he was lying to me, but he made me a lot of promises, and he definitely didn't come through.
All right. I guess it was actually 3 years ago around this time you joined the NWO with Nitro. Start over. 3 years ago you joined the NWO on Nitro with Hall and Nash. How did that come about?
Because Kevin Sullivan basically was at war with me at that point. He hated Chris Benoit, he hated Eddie Guerrero, he hated me, he hated Malenko. Because he promised us a lot of shit and he wasn't coming through with them. He wasn't protecting these guys that he brought in with promises to protect.
Right.
That's why when when he became Booker, we told Bill Bush, I don't want to be here, if Kevin Sullivan's going to take over. And I remember Kevin Sullivan came up to me and was mad. He goes, hey, brother, did you really tell Bill Bush that you would leave if I was here? I go, no, I didn't say I would leave. I just said I would rather not be here, or I would rather have somebody else book my shit like Terry Taylor. He goes, why do you say that? I brought you in. I go, bro, how about that whole Master P angle? I go, you fucked me on that. He goes,
what happened with that?
He goes, that was Nash. Well, they were mad because at that time on USA Today, I had come out and said that, Eric Bischoff was condescending, and that, there were too many old guys here, and, Eric went off on me. And then Nash, being the company boy, went off on me too. He goes, if you don't like it here, if you don't want to be here, you should just take your bags and get the fuck out. And I felt like, going, motherfucker, nobody's complained more than you. But I knew at that point Nash and Eric were buds, and they probably would have done something to me. So I just said, discretion's a better part of valor. But at that time, Nash was up Eric's ass, and Nash is smart. He knows how to play guys. He knows how to play the guy that's in power. Guy's smart. I'm not even putting him down for that, but he didn't need to fuck me, because he knew that Kevin Sullivan was trying to fuck me, Scott Hall, and Kevin Ashton. At that time, we used to hang out a lot. Me, Ray, X-Pac was like the nicest guy in the world. X-Pac, great superstar, probably my second favorite wrestler after Eddie Guerrero, and we used to hang out a lot, listen to the same music, Tupac and shit like that. And I told him, I go, hey, Kevin's already told me he's coming out to get me. And because he wanted Jackie, the black girl who's in WWF, I think her name.
Right, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly.
I forgot her name.
She works Memphis all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what her name is there.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, the only, I think she's like the only black girl in WWF. Right. And she was called Jackie. And I know Kevin Sullivan liked her a lot, and I think he might have even been trying to date her. But anyways, the bottom line is that he wanted her to beat the shit out of me. This was like might have been right before or after Disco got fired because he wouldn't do a job to her. And I was like, fuck that. And he goes, well, what's wrong? He goes, you can't do business. He goes, are you listening to that Hall and Nash? Keep listening to them and you'll see where you're going to go. And I said, oh, shit's on, because Nash hated Sullivan. Because I guess Nash and Sullivan had beef from when Nash was either Oz or somebody, and I think Sullivan was his manager. Now, I never saw this. This is something Nash told me. And I guess they got into a fight with some guy, and it might have been in Philadelphia, of all places. And when they went to court, or right before they were going to court, I guess Sullivan buried Nash, and Nash never forgot that. Or a million other reasons, I'm sure. Because, Nash don't really like you unless you're stroking him. You know what I'm saying? So, the bottom line is I told Hall and Nash, I go, this guy's about to fuck me. And they said, why don't you join us? And I said, fuck, cool, because they were cool as shit. I think one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life was Hall and Nash and X-Pac, the NWO. You know what I'm saying? Them three. Really, Hogan and Eric didn't add nothing to them. They didn't need them. And I think they knew how cool they were and they rolled their coattails. But I remember sitting in Seattle, Washington. I really remember this, and looking out there and going, I have not seen anything like this since either like when Hogan was really big or Macho Man was really big, or like when me and Vampiro were big in Mexico. That's the closest thing I'd ever seen in wrestling, because it was like they'd go out there and it was like a thunderous, a thunderous response. They look cool as shit, good looking guys. X-Pac would usually go out there to Kung Fu fighting, which was hilarious, and the girls were going nuts. Guys were loving them, because they weren't so good looking that they threatened guys. You know what I'm saying?
They're
like
cool.
Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels looked like a fag. And so they, I would just look at them and go, fuck. So when they asked me to join, I thought that was an honor,
How did Eric Bischoff change as WCW became more successful?
I just think obviously he got a big head, like a lot of us do, and become successful. It's happened to me, and it's happened to like every wrestler I've talked to in Mexico. It's happened to. So it happens to everybody. When you've never been anybody, and now girls want to fuck you, and guys want to hang out with you, and guys' jobs depend on you, and you just have this power, and you become, you think you're infallible, you think you're indestructible, and you start fucking up, and I just think that a lot of guys were playing with his head, a lot of guys were giving him wrong advice, a lot of guys were just hanging, and I'm sure it was cool for Eric Bischoff, who I didn't know this until now, who used to be an announcer, who's now saying, hey, I hang out with Hogan, I hang out with Macho, I'm their boss, I'm sure, that would have been a big kick for me too.
Do you think that, go ahead, sorry.
Because I remember asking Antonio Pena once that same question, Antonio used to be a wrestler, and I used to go, hey, how does it feel, being Sangre Chicana's boss, who like was a big star in Mexico, Pedro Aguayo's boss, big star, Hijo del Santo, the son of the greatest legend in the history of Mexico. How does it feel to say, I'm their boss, I give them orders? I go, tell me the truth. It feels cool as shit, So I'm sure, there was a little bit of, ego there, and I just think it was a lot of, Eric was a prick, but I know for sure that he just had a lot. When you got a deal, just imagine. I mean, just the stuff you've read and you've heard about, but he had to deal with them personally.
Right.
Nash, Hall, Piper, Macho, Hogan, just Bret Hart, just all the guys that went there that were demanding stuff. And I don't want to do this because he doesn't want to do it. He's making more money than I am. And, Sting, why does Sting always have to beat up everybody? And Lex Luger, well, this. And, bro, it had to get to it. And then you got, what in probably Eric Bischoff's eyes were guys who were non-deserving. Konnan, who's this Konnan guy bitching? Get the hell out of my face. And Benoit, who are you? And who's Eddie Guerrero, He was just sick of it, because I remember he came from France once, and, we were, really at odds. And I just went into his office, and I didn't give a damn. No, it wasn't his office. It was, his dressing room. When I sat down, and I looked at him, I go, hey, Eric. I go, bro, you look fucking ragged. What's wrong with you? He goes, Konnan, I just went to France. He goes, I was with my daughter. It was the best time of my life. He goes, I didn't even feel like coming back. He goes, my mind isn't even in the wrestling. Won't even be back for 3 months. He goes, I'm just tired. I could just tell he was a beaten man.
Right.
But he beat us up too. He really broke Nash. I was talking to Nash about this the other day. He broke Nash's spirit. He broke Hall's spirit. He broke my spirit. He just broke us in half. With comments like, well, you're getting paid enough and you got to do what I tell you. He used to tell me, well, in Mexico, at least you're not working in barns anymore. I go, who the fuck told you I was working in barns to begin with? And he just had a very shallow understanding of what Mexico's all about. He must have thought we worked in cesspools and sewer tanks and in front of I don't know, cavemen. I don't know what he thought Mexico was like, because I remember he went there once and he hated it.
Right.
He was like, I want to get out of here. And I was like, so I just think that he thought we worked, I don't know, in circus tents or something, and that we were dying of hunger, where in all actuality we were doing good, we were having fun. And even I was talking to Paulie about this when we talked the other day, and he was telling me, would you rather be in a place where you get paid less and you're happy and you have creative control, where you're getting paid a lot of money like you are now and you're just a puppet,
Right. How do you feel about when, Rey Mysterio Jr. and Hoobie were forced to unmask?
No, we were all pissed off, and of course the Mexicans were pissed off. Because they didn't understand or respect our culture. And I know why Eric did it, because Ray's a good-looking kid, Hoovie's a good-looking kid, but they could have done it better. Even Chris Jericho, who had been in Mexico, he was pissed about it. And if they would have given it a storyline like they've given everybody else and made it a real big deal, it could have been a big deal, and they didn't. They just did it on a whim and took it off, and okay, I did it, But I just don't think Eric, and this is no fault of his, even though I tried to explain it to him, because I told him it was a culture thing. I don't give a damn about no culture. And I said, I just think that he just thought he's a good-looking kid. Why is he hiding under a mask? I mean, you can't really argue with that. But my argument was, Eric, instead of doing this in 1 month, why don't you make it like a 3-month thing? Go to Mexico, see why the masks are so important. Right. Who did he lose it to Nash, right? To Nash, right?
Yeah.
I think Nash was a heel at that time, right? So. Have Nash go to Tijuana and, powerbomb him through a talk. I don't know, just, make fun of him and just, make it mean something. It's just done so quick.
Do you think he dropped the ball with all the luchadors and stuff like that?
Definitely. Yeah, because I think when we first came in, I remember watching Hogan and Macho and even Ultimate Warrior and everybody just looking at the monitor and go, whoa, wow, what is that? Right. And then of course laughing, that was stupid.
Right.
But they couldn't do it if they tried. But it was like, it got your attention.
Right.
These are guys in the business that have seen it all, who usually don't watch any damn match unless it's somebody that they're trying to bury to find a mistake they make so they can go rush and tell Eric. And, they were all there watching and hey, amigo, good match, So, I mean, I really think that was one of the things that helped blow away WWF, because nobody had ever seen anything like that.
That's a new thing to the States. My next question is, do you think the inconsistency of the NWO was the downfall?
No, the watering down of the NWO. You can't put Scott Norton and Benson and K-Dog, who at that time I didn't mean shit, and all these guys, and try to make them cool just because you put them in the NWO. I mean, who won the Super Bowl? St. Louis? Was it the Rams?
This year, yeah.
Yeah. You know, just because you put somebody on their team doesn't make them a world champion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just like they kept trying to put all these guys in the WWE, trying to push them, and people knew who was charismatic and who wasn't. You know, they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and the day of the dump ban is over. You know what I mean? With the internet and all these dirt sheets, and just that people are more sophisticated. You look at the toys I played with, the toys kids are playing with today, it's just a huge difference.
What's your take on the whole Scott Hall situation, I mean, with WCW? Are you shocked that he's still on the payroll with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I'm shocked. He's a good friend of mine, so it's not that I can't badmouth him because I can.
Right.
I mean, he's a great friend of mine, and I learned more from Scott Hall than anybody in this business, and I've been in the car with him, and I've cried with him, and he's explained to me all the stuff he's been through. You've got to understand when guys like Jake the Snake Robert, Scott Hall, and you've heard this line so many times, there's such a thin line between genius and insanity. And not that they're insane, but it's like they're such emotional, passionate. I mean, Jake the Snake and Scott are a lot alike. Even Mongo McMichael, who was another guy that I grew to love. You know, the guy that played for the Chicago Bears that was in WCW. When you sit and you listen to some of their stories, I mean, who wouldn't be in the shambles that they are? You know what I'm saying? And I mean, they've just been through a lot personally, and the only way they know how to deal with it. I mean, if you look at Elvis Presley, I look at a lot at, you know, VH1, Behind the Music, the True Life Stories. Right. I'm sure you're familiar with True Hollywood Stories. I mean, they're great. All these guys from John Belushi to Freddie Prinze to Elvis Presley to Jimi Hendrix to, you know, all these people that had so much money, that were good looking, that were super famous. Why are they killing themselves and overdosing and almost because of the pressure? You know, they're super talented. That's the same thing that happens to them. Sometimes they just don't know how to cope with pressure, and they deal with drugs or some of the shit that they've done. You know, I mean, if you even look at the O.J. Simpson thing, multimillionaire, you know, very famous guy. I mean, we all know he was guilty from the minute that he called on the cell phone and said, "I got a gun to my head." Why would a guy want to kill himself if he didn't do it? What happened is Shapiro and then Cochran probably said, "Hey, yo, chill. We could probably get you out of this. Put that shit away and let's you know what I'm saying?" I mean, right there, that told you, you know.
Right.
And another one that I loved in that case was like there was like a 1 in 12 billion chance of that DNA stain that it was his, and supposedly in the world there were like 5 billion people. So I mean, who else could it be?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. But you know, they were able to say this guy was a racist and that the blood was probably tainted because it wasn't handled right. They got through on a loophole, you know, great for them, great lawyers. That's why they're around. They make up bullshit laws every year so we can get screwed. You know, if I don't want to wear my seatbelt, I don't want to wear it. You don't need to fine me for it. But the bottom line is, without getting off on a tangent about something else, is that these are highly creative, passionate, emotional people that that the only way that they can deal with some of their demons is, you know, getting drunk, getting pilled up, and that's how they are, man. But when you sit down with them, they're cool people.
You and Kevin Nash seem to have like an on the air relationship, off the air relationship, and it seems like recently, I don't know how true it is, he didn't want to work an angle with you guys and Filthy Animals. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, he says no, and he even got DDP to get me on film to actually, I guess DDP's got some feud with this guy from the Torch called Wade Keller, which I don't really know what it's all about. I think he explained it to me once, and I don't remember what it was, but he actually asked me, he goes, "Hey, you know, is it true that, you know, Kevin Nash doesn't want to work with you guys?" And I go, "Well, I don't know if it's true or not. The bottom line is he isn't working with us. So, you know, what does that tell you?" He goes, "But when he's worked with you, has he been professional?" I go, "Yeah, he has, but he isn't working with us." I go, "Now, why haven't you worked with us, DDP?" And he goes, "Well, you know, there hasn't been a chance." And I said, "Well, if in 3 months you haven't worked with the Filthy Animals, I'm going to come back to the same camera and I'm going to ask again." So, you know, I just think none of the top guys want to work with us, not just Nash.
Were you surprised, relieved, or indifferent when Bischoff was recently demoted? Before, you know,
demoted?
Before actually promoted.
Promoted?
Yeah.
I was surprised when he got fired. Right. And I was more surprised when he got hired. But I will say this about Eric. He's got a lot of balls, and he's a fighter, and he wants to be number one. And that's the type of guy I want on our team. See, and this is nothing really against Kevin Sullivan. He just doesn't have that fighting spirit in him. He's more about getting his friends around him, having a good time, and just kind of, you know, coasting. And I think Nash was the same way as a booker. Bill Bush obviously didn't know what the hell he was doing. Neither did J.J. Dillon.
What's your impression of Vince Russo?
huge balls, very smart guy. He does a lot of stuff I don't agree with, but I can't even begin to tell that I'm a good a booker as him because I think he's a genius. You know, I just really think he's really smart. And this thing that they're doing now, it smells like a work. He's told me it isn't.
I was going to ask you about that. Recently, Hulk Hogan, the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view last Sunday. What's your take on the Hogan thing?
That's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I was actually worked the whole match by Disco and a lot of other people that this was a shoot. And I talked to Vince about it, and I told him, bro, you better be serious with me. He says, Konnan, somebody has to put their foot down on these old guys. I'm just tired of them running around all over us. And I just looked at him like, if you're working me, why? Because I don't buy the pay-per-view. You know? And if you're working these 10,000 fans on the internet who they know they have power, because obviously you listen to them and they've given you good ideas, who gives a damn, you know? I mean, and the bad thing about the internet fans is they know they have this power. They know they have the ability to swerve shit, change shit, get the word out and make people change finishes. And that makes them think they're cool and hip. But who gives a fuck about them? They're going to watch regardless. Because they're smart, hardcore fans.
Something like 5% of the audience, anyway. So.
Unless they really give them like a just like a terrible show, they're gonna get turned off. But anyways, if it was for them and for the boys, but he's got everybody talking, and I think maybe to him that's important. Maybe he's just tired of, the wrestlers that do talk to the dirt sheets, the wrestlers that do shoot interviews, the wrestlers that do go to the matches and try to wise up the casual fans. They just don't want nothing to get out. But they've done it so much that I just think it's never really, how should we say, converted itself into any big money feud, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Do you think it's a work or shoot, basically?
Do I think it's a work or shoot? I want to think that Vince Russo wouldn't have worked me. Because I asked him, I go, just, what's going on? And the people around him, everybody around him, like Disco, who's a good friend of mine, and Bill Banks, and Terry Taylor, and Ed Ferrara, they're all working it like it's a shoot. But I find it hard to believe that he got on TV and did what he did, and that Brad Siegel, who I don't think is that smart about the business, just because he's never really been around it that long enough to be smart about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Would just let him go out there and do that, because I just think that Hogan and Bischoff probably would have called them the next day and said, what the fuck is going on? So I'm going to say that it's a work.
Okay. What happened that caused you to sit out during the Bill Bush?
Very easy. Benoit, Eddie, and Malenko. Well, Sullivan don't like Benoit because he married a woman. He don't like Eddie because he's Benoit's friend, and because Eddie's been mad at Sullivan because he's never really taken care of him, and he never did. Malenko, same reason. Perry Saturn, same reason. Billy Kidman, for some reason, Kevin Sullivan has never liked him and always was putting down, Tori. Me, he promised me the world and didn't give me dick. And then when he did the Master P angle, which basically was an angle where I got with Master P, who was a hot rapper. And what he did is he got these, he got Barry Windham and Kendall Windham, who were like huge Office stooges. Well, not Kendall so much as Barry. And Bobby Duncan, God rest his soul, one of the nicest guys I ever met, and Kurt Hennig, great guy and great worker, one of the greatest workers of all time. He put them on stage in Atlanta. Now here they were, the good guys, all right, the good guys. They'd already beaten us up once in the show. Okay, it was like 4 of them, and they beat up like about 7 of us, all right? Plus, the worst nightmare is watching like 15 black guys dressed up in military fatigues. It looks like a gang. That's why people don't want to see that. They're like afraid of that image, And so they beat us up, and then they had this one scene where it was Master P's brother's birthday. His name is Silk the Shocker, who's actually a rapper, very famous rapper. It was his birthday, and we did a thing where about 20 of us beat up on 4 of them, which doesn't make us look like baby faces, you know. And to racist America, or whoever is racist, here's 20 black guys beating up 4 white guys. It's very subliminal. You know what I'm saying? Very subtle, very smartly done. And and then that night in Atlanta, they had what were their name? The Cowboys or some shit, singing "I Hate Rap." Okay. Now here they were, 4 guys. Why didn't we go up and just beat the shit out of them? I mean, they had them play the whole song like they were actually country stars. And they just started to turn the people on us. And they did little things like that. And you know, Sullivan blames it on Nash. Nash blames it on Sullivan. Well, you were both the bookers, so you both know what was going on. And if Nash really wanted to, he could have said, "Hey, look, Konnan, watch out, because this is happening." He didn't. You know, he wanted to get back at me because at that time I was in his friend, because I was tired of hearing him and Lex and all the other guys put down Jericho and Benoit and Eddie, how they never make business, how they were too small, how they were too stupid, how they were vanilla midgets, how they were all these reasons. And the truth was they were talented, and they just didn't want to work with them. You know.
Did you ever actually consider leaving?
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna leave for sure. You know, I was already talking with Mexico and trying to get into the WWF. So I was about to leave, and then when Vince came in, you know, I was like, cool. You know.
If Vince were to leave or something were to happen, are you worried about your?
Yeah, I would leave probably almost for sure.
How much control do you have right now in your angles? Any or?
Not that much. I mean, you know, Disco is helping book, but he's so happy being a booker. You know, he's like after Ray and Hoovy, he's my best friend.
Right.
So I mean, this isn't a knock on him. I just think because he loves the business. I mean, if he wasn't watching the business, he'd probably be doing this. You know,
right.
He'd probably be on the internet. You know, he just loves the business. There's nothing wrong with it because I love it too. But I want to get paid for it, and I worked too many free matches at the beginning, and I did too many free things, and you know, I've been injured like I am now, and you know, I lost a wife over this business. I lost a baby over this business. I just think that, to me, Disco's so happy to be in the booking room and getting ideas and being part of the creative process that he forgets to get his own team over and himself over, you know. And I'm like, yo, bro, everybody that's been a booker gets himself over. I'm not saying to be world champion, be Booker T and then spear Goldberg, but get yourself over, baby, and get this group over, because Rey Mysterio is one of the greatest wrestlers in the world with a lot of charisma. So's Juventud. Hoovy's funny on the mic. You're very entertaining, because I feel Disco's entertaining and he's a great worker, very underrated. You know, and I feel I can rock the mic with the best of them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm a great
A lot of
worker.
people say you're like one of the best promos in the business that doesn't get a chance. So.
Right. The same thing you could say for Shane Douglas.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And he goes out there, and, you know, I mean, like, this is what Ed Ferraro do to me, and I love Ed. He's a cool guy. But Ed will say, okay, K-Dog, go out there, say that the MIAs are a bunch of losers, but at the same time say something about Ray, and if you can, try to say this, you know, but say it quick.
Right.
You know, I'm like, bro, I need to be able to hear a reaction. I need to be able to play with the
I remember
people.
you used to do your promos, your catch tagline, you used to do it, and you do it real quick.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But even when I was with the NWO, like, I had a little bit more time. You know, I had to go out there and, you know, yeah, it's everybody, you know, where my dogs at, everybody body,
Right.
and rowdy, oh yeah, and I could play with them. I could let them come into me.
Right.
Almost like The Rock does. See, The Rock, what I've noticed that he does a lot is, you know, he'll say something, I will get your Rudy Poo candy ass, and then he'll let the people soak it in, and
right.
he'll look at them, and you know, and that's what you got to do, because if people want to be part of the show,
right.
That's why catchphrases are over. And I actually started my catchphrases because Nash and Hall used to do that for live, because they're really the first one that kind of started. I mean,
right.
we could really go back to Hacksaw Jim Duggan with the ho,
right.
But he almost did it as kind of part of the match. You know,
right,
these were the first guys that were doing promos and for live, okay? And then I just started to say, okay, so the fans like to say shit, so I started to get into it. Then everybody wanted to do it. Then DDP wanted to do it, and then it was like, bro, you just can't force. You know, Perry Saturn wanted to do it.
Right.
This is a revolution. People are like, nah, motherfucker, we decide when we want to do it.
Do you think Eric Bischoff has changed this time around?
He's changed a lot. If this thing is a work,
right.
then obviously he hasn't changed. But if it's a shoot, I mean, if this thing is a shoot, then he hasn't changed. If it's a work, he has. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
I mean, if it's a work, every time I've seen him, he's more laid back. He's not under so much stress. I know he likes to be on TV, and I think he's done a credible role talking. He's a good
right.
talker, and a good heel, and a good baby face. I mean, he's camera friendly. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to work the camera. Best guy I've ever seen on. To me personally, best guy I've ever seen on the camera, Scott Hall and the Snake. Even though I think The Rock right now is fabulous, but you know, Scott does little things and knows how to play with the camera, knows how to play with his hair, knows how to, you know, you can learn a lot from him. But Eric, I think, is happy because he's got an on-roll thing. He's got he's always on TV. He gets a lot of promo time, and those are his strengths.
Right.
And I think now he doesn't have to deal with contracts, which was obviously a pain in the ass. He doesn't have to dealing with discipline, which I think was another pain in the ass. And I think now he can just come and look at Vince Russo's scripts and go, this, no, I don't think this will work, this, and just does it. You know, I still think that more guys need to be elevated.
What was your consensus? What was the actual consensus in the locker room with the boys when David Arquette got the belt?
Everybody was pissed.
Right.
I don't really give a damn. I mean, I'm not. To me, this is like everybody knows it's a work.
Right.
Who gives a damn?
If you could change some things in WCW, what would you change?
Well, that's a good question. I've never even thought about this. I would make all the guys on top elevate all the guys on the bottom, but without getting rid of them. Okay? And then the guys that were willing to do business, like Ric Flair, there's a place for them. You don't want to do business? Let's see if Paulie or Vince has any place for you. Okay? Somebody elevated you. To me, the most professional thing you can do in wrestling is elevate somebody. Because somebody elevated you. Somebody used their career, their time, their name, their sacrifice to make you who you are. Now, you can't do the same, and you're an ungrateful son of a bitch and get the fuck out. That's me. And I'm not saying elevate somebody, then you're out the door.
Right.
If you did the favor, we can still work something with you. That would be number one. Number two, I would definitely get a lot of junior heavyweight matches going. I think there's nothing more exciting to me than watching junior heavyweights. That doesn't matter if they weigh 120, if they're short, just have their own little division. And if somebody in that division is very charismatic and can go to the heavyweights, then sell for the motherfucker. You know, Shawn Michaels wasn't that tall compared to those guys, and Vader was selling for him, and Undertaker was selling for them, and Scott Hall was selling for them, and so was Nash. Okay? You don't gotta elevate all of them, but get one or two that can break that barrier and that people believe in. You know what I'm saying? You could, Bruce, I don't think there's anybody that thinks that could have beaten Bruce Lee. And that was a badass motherfucker, and I don't think he was any taller than 5'5".
Right.
So it's all about, credibility. Another thing that I would do, I would definitely do a lot of promoting with like MTV, VH1, Teen People magazine. I would do a lot of cross promoting with our own company, with Warner Brothers and the huge infrastructure. I mean, you always see the same motherfuckers on Larry King. If it ain't Hogan, it's fucking Macho.
Right.
Is there anybody else that could? I mean, Scott Hall's just as witty as they are. Nash is as intelligent. Eric Bischoff. There's a lot of guys you could put. Myself. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could put on that show. And, they've got they make movies. And I think the only ones that's made movies is Sting, Hulk, and Piper. The only one I've actually liked is one that Sting made. Have other guys make movies, you know what I'm saying? Have them on kids shows. Have them on talk shows. Have them do series, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
a lot. That's what we did in Mexico. We did a lot of, like, Televisa was a major network there. I was at every kid show, every variety show, every show there was. I mean, I was just a mainstream celebrity.
Who do you like to watch now?
In our promotion?
In wrestling in general.
As far as just that's entertaining or wrestling, I like mostly they're in WWF. I like everybody. I like a lot of guys in WWF. My favorite definitely is The Rock, then Hunter. I think he's on fire. I think Cactus. I don't like Cactus that much now. I used to like Cactus a lot. I like the Hardy Boys. I like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, plus like Chris, Eddie. They're great friends of mine, both Benoit and Jericho. So I'm like happy for them. When they win a title, I almost feel like I'm sharing it with them. I'm so happy for them. I like to see Kurt Angle. I think he's funny. I like to see Vince McMahon, Shane, Stephanie. I think they're hilarious. I think they're good. I like Undertaker's new gimmick. I love when Patterson and Briscoe, the hardcore title and all that. That's hilarious. Now on our side, there's just nothing to be excited about because everybody's too busy trying to hold everybody back. Like the only thing that I kind of like, I like the Young Dragons because they're entertaining.
Right.
Some of the matches with 3 count, obviously Hoovy and Ray.
The stuff we're doing with Tank Abbott's kind of funny too.
Yeah, he's all right, but I mean, there's just so many guys that are much more talented that they're not doing anything with.
What do you think it's going to take to change? What do you think will happen? I mean, do you think anything will get better?
If we're being worked, I mean, I just don't know because this thing about if this is a shoot or if this is a work, I just think that what it just takes is that something like what Vince is doing. You know, if whether it's a shoot or a work, I mean, obviously he's elevating the young guys, so you have to do that. You have to invest your future in the guys who have a future.
Right.
None of these guys who have taken it all and have given nothing back and are now trying to get in shape to go back to WWF. You have to elevate young guys. That's number one. Number two, their production is so much better than ours. You have to get better production, no matter how much money it takes. You know, like Eric was talking about that they were getting a new sound, a new machine for editing sound and shit like that. Because if you listen to Thunder, it's almost like a pre-programmed track that goes, yay, boo, yay,
right.
boo. Even if a guy's doing like a cool interview, yay, boo, yay. I mean, it's just like so obsolete. So while you're doing that, you need to, talk to whoever you need to talk to, Brad Siegel, whoever, and invest money and get the best production money can make, because it's one of your highest rated show and it deserves that. And just do some of the shit they're doing. Get some highly motivated individuals. Go to film school in LA at UCLA or USC or, in Atlanta. I don't know what college they have there, Morehouse or whatever the hell they got there, University of Miami or whatever, and get some of the best film students, some of the best film editors. Go there and watch their shit. There's got to be some Quentin Tarantinos in there, and there's got to be some Robert Rodriguez's, the guy that made Desperado. Right. And get some of these guys, or that Indian guy that just made The Sixth Sense, right, who's making another movie who says it's out of this world. Get some of these young, cutting-edge kids that can edit and produce, or steal some guys from MTV right, or VH1 and put them out there and bust it out, That's what you got to do. All these guys that have been there for years because they knew this guy, they liked this guy, or they live in Atlanta, fuck all them. Everything needs to be, you look at the NBA, you don't see anybody that's been playing for 20 years, because they can't go no more and the people ain't going to want to see him. You could bring Kareem back for one or two novelty games, but people want to see Shaq.
They want to, right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just everything needs to be renovated.
Couple more questions, and we can wrap it up. Basically, your recent injury was with, I guess, Van Hammer, right?
Right.
What happened?
Well, Van Hammer comes from that school of Sid Vicious. I'm taller than everybody and bigger than everybody. Therefore, I must do one power move, no matter. If you put the other guy's, career in jeopardy. I told them, when you pick up, first of all, there are certain guys in my mind that when their name, I know that I wrestle them, I try to do nothing with them or as little as possible, and his is one of them. And I thought to myself, okay, he isn't doing nothing in the match, he's trying to get over, all right, I'll do this. So he was going to pick up Juventud, he was going to throw him over the top rope, and I was supposed to catch him like this. I told him like a million times, when you pick him up, this is how you do it. Make sure you get close to the rope. Make sure you just heave him, look for me. And I showed him exactly how you do it. Because even little things like that, there's little intricacies that you have to know. Even when you throw a guy, like when you pick up a guy and you throw him against the edge of the ring apron outside, a lot of people don't know this, but the best way to take that, and people don't see this, is you take your foot and you hit it right there. That way you protect your back, and it still makes a sound, right? If you're going to go straight into it, you're going to have a fucked up back. So it's little idiosyncrasies like that, you know what I'm saying? Even like when somebody's doing a splash, you're supposed to bend up like that and catch him, okay? So you don't break a bone or he doesn't take out all your air. You're not just supposed to stand there like that so all his weight balls on you. You break his fall by going like that. That's why you see a lot of guys doing that. So it's little things like that. So I'm teaching how to throw him right. Well, he picks him up, and Mr. Marky Mark, without the funky bunch, just decides to just heave him at me like a Randy Jansen fastball. So Juventud in the air looks like a cat that's just been thrown out of a roof. So instead of me catching him, I actually shield my face, because I'm seeing boots and knees coming at me. I'm not seeing like a perpendicular body that I can catch. And his fucking, his elbow ripped into my tricep right here. And right there I felt it. I said, fuck, something happened. And my arm just, like the next day, was black and purple. It was pathetic. And Dr. James Andrews of Birmingham, Alabama, who like does everybody, Tom Glavine, and like everybody, he did a good job. He didn't need to wake up in the same bed with me, but that's just the point.
How long are you going to be out for?
2.5 months. Originally, I was going to be out 6 months.
Right. Just going to go down to a couple people's names, and you could just give me, your thoughts on them. Scott Steiner.
Scott Steiner. That guy reminds me of like an android, the Matrix, a Tasmanian devil, an LSD experiment gone bad. That's when he's sleeping. He is like the most intense individual.
Actually, he did a good promo last night with Thunder. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I didn't see it.
It was good.
He's like one of the most intense individuals I've ever seen in my life. He's just always either pissed off or just exalted or pumping something or eating something or, I mean, he's incredible. I mean, he's always screaming. He's just, I don't know if it's, you know, all the growth in him or Big Papa growth, or if it's a combination of he's just very short-tempered and that's how he is, but he's just like always on the edge. He's real cool with me.
Right.
You know, even though he did, you know, all the cool sayings that I was saying, I think he took a page from my notebook. Either that or Nash told him, you know, Big Papa Pump is your hookup, holler if you hear me. You know, a lot of little hip-hop phrases. But he's a cool guy. Right. And I got a kick out of watching because you never know when he's going to explode. And I think he's cut promos on just about everybody in this company. And I love just watching when he's going to do it next. But he's got a lot of talent, incredible body. Obviously, he's, you know, world-class athlete. Right. He just needs to tone his temper down because he's going to get put in jail one day. Because I've seen him do stuff like on airplanes and gyms that I'm like, bro, you're lucky that, you know, they're not calling the cops on you. He's just bad temper, but he is a cool guy. Bill Goldberg, really good friend of mine. He reminds me a lot of me in that he got this real big push real quick and they didn't know what he was doing or what was going on. He doesn't want to seem like he's dumb. Like he tries to lead people on like he really knows what's going on because he doesn't want to seem dumb. But there's no way you can know what's going on in this business in 2 years. There's no way. He just doesn't want to be taken advantage of.
You think he has a football mentality and he doesn't think like a wrestler yet? Or?
No, he's very intelligent, incredible sense of humor. I think he listened to a lot of guys who in a wanton manner gave him bad advice, and then he later found out. Now he doesn't want to be fucked again, so he pretends like he knows it all, so nobody will fuck with him, but he doesn't. And he's very intelligent, but when he came back from his injury, he came back like a huge mark. Like, I don't give a fuck. You know, these guys tried to fuck me. They only care about themselves, so I only care about myself. But underneath it all, he's a hell of a nice guy. And as a matter of fact, he only lives like 40 minutes from here.
I thought he lived in Georgia?
Yeah, he lives in Atlanta, and he also has a house like 40 minutes from here.
Okay. Raven,
when we first met, we hated each other. I mean, hated each other with a passion. And he once tried to give me free psychology lessons or gave me a free psychiatric fucking, I don't know what he was doing. And he goes, the reason you and me hate each other is because we're so much alike. And at the first time, I thought, that's a pretty cool evaluation, but I just heard him say the same thing about Paulie. So right. I don't know if that's a blanket thing he has for everybody, but believe me, I will say this. He's super intelligent. I mean, super intelligent, super funny. He's like the coolest guy to hang out with, okay, as long as he doesn't get too fucked up.
Right.
And he has actually perfected, him and Perry Saturn have actually perfected what I call the shameless mall. And what that is they will actually go into a disco, and I've seen this happen at least 20 times. They'll actually go to a disco and grab girls anywhere they can, and whoever doesn't slap them, they'll leave with them. So it's shameless and it's beautiful because they'll get smacked and cussed at about 3 or 4 times, but there'll always be that one girl who either A, likes wrestlers or just likes to get mauled.
Right.
And they would end up leaving with them. And plus, he also comes from Shameless University, which one of the professors there is DDP, and his alumni are Chris Jericho and Raven. And they're just shameless. I mean, they would, one time, Eric Bischoff was coming out of an office, and Raven was actually waiting for him, like about 2 feet away. Then Jericho positioned himself like a foot away. Then Raven positioned himself like even closer. And it was just like, they're so shameless.
Right.
And plus Raven, for the longest time, he had like this whole group of guys around him that did nothing. All he did was sit in the corner. Remember, he had like Scotty Riggs, and Billy Kidman, and
the big guy.
And the big guy, Ron Reese.
Right.
And he would actually admit, he goes, that was pretty tough for me. He goes, I actually had to sit down, just laugh about it,
Right.
But he's another guy like Jake and like Scott, that if you talk to him, a lot of demons, didn't get along with his father, just like Jake Roberts didn't, and just has a lot of stuff in him, you know what I'm saying? But he's a cool guy. Great guy to party with. By the way, those 3 are great guys to party with. I would love to see Jake, Scott, and Raven party.
What was the greatest rib you've ever seen in the business?
Rib. And I've seen so many, and then I forget them. I think I can't, I would have to think like for a while, but I know one was played on me. I had actually hid the boots of the guy I was gonna wrestle with. Okay, and he was going everywhere looking for them. He had to go into the ring without boots.
Right.
And then somebody hit him on me, so we both went in the room. But I'll tell you one that I did. It was funny at the time. There was this referee that he really got into his shit. He would always check like your things,
right.
Check on here and check your boots. And I stepped on some dog shit. He checked my thing. He goes, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "Hey, bro, I must have stepped on it coming to the ring." But I was such a practical joker. They knew it was me. Like I had just bought a camera, and I used to go around with it. When you first buy your camera,
right.
You want to film everything. And I would actually get my friend to hide, and we would call people out and we'd pop them in the nuts. We'd watch them just bend over in agony. And then when I was retired,
right.
I went into Domino's Pizza in Mexico, and I asked him, could I make a pizza and have my friend film it? And the guy was like, "Yeah, but you have to put a hat on and some gloves." So I was making the pizza, and these people come in, and they're like, "Are you Konnan?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "What are you doing?" "Oh, well, I retired from wrestling, so, I'm making pizzas now." He goes, "Okay, we'll have a pepperoni and a double cheese." And we made a pizza, and I pretended I was getting on the motorcycle, and I was taking off, and I burned myself on the muffler, and I have all that shit put away. But I had a lot of fun in Mexico, man. I'm dying to go back and maybe send talent to United States and maybe help book over here. But
that's one of the last questions. What do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I just think it's like I hate to bring this guy's name up again, but Nash, we were talking about this, and he just said, he goes, I see myself another 2 good years in Titan, and then, because he knows if he goes back as Big Daddy Cool, Big Pop,
right.
Or Diesel, whatever he was called. And, he could probably maybe wrestle Rock, Hunter, all those guys, and probably wouldn't give a damn if he had to do a job for them, because he knows over there you can't dictate what
right.
you do. And then he says, and I want to get into the booking committee. And he'd probably have a lot of good ideas, but you always have to remember, when you're a booker, you just can't push guys you like or guys that are your friends. That's not good business. Talent. And then if you want to give your friends a job because they're your friends or they've been loyal, then go ahead, but you can't push them to the top, And but I think, this is what I think. I'm hoping in this last year and a half that I have, Vince Russo will finally give me a chance to show what I can do. Because, when I was real hot with the NWO, and I was doing all my shit,
right.
A lot of people don't know this, but right after Goldberg, I had the best-selling shirt, mine, and Tommy Boy and Rap-A-Lot Records. Rap-A-Lot does a lot of, ghetto rap records. Ghetto Boy, Scarface, those guys are out of Houston, Texas. They were offering me a lot of money to do a record, and I was really hot, doing a lot of autograph sessions and stuff like that. And I know I can. I'll tell you a story of Hogan, which really kind of touched me. This was maybe about 2 months ago. He goes, "Hey, K-Dog," he goes, "What happened to you?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What happened? I mean, you were so hot when you were in the NWO." And I go, "You know what happened, Terry." I go, "You know who held me back, and you know exactly what happened." And I didn't mean him, because he was
right.
one of the guys that held me back. He goes, "Yeah, brother." He goes, "I know the deal." He goes, "Man," he actually told me this. He goes, "My son thought you were so cool. He used to dress like you. He even had me dressing like you." He goes, "I would wear baggy jeans everywhere, and I was wearing the flannel shirt. You had a cool look, man." He goes, "It was really cool." And I just thought, from him, he didn't have to tell me that. I just thought that was really cool,
Right.
And I just think that I had that influence on a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people probably saw this, this fucking video sucks, and whole gangster look sucks. But, if you go to malls nowadays, you'll see a lot of people with the baggy jeans, and, it's just a very urban look,
right.
And I think it had never been done before, and it got hot, And like anything else in WCW, if you get hot, just ask Chavito Guerrero, just ask Norman Smiley, just ask Chris Jericho, just ask Chris Benoit, just ask K-Dog.
How good did you do Lance Storm already?
Just ask Rey Mysterio. But I don't think Lance Storm, he's lucky. He doesn't have as many sharks as before. There's not as many, so he may make it, And he's a kid with a lot of talent.
Right. In closing, do you want to say anything to your fans?
I don't know if I have any, but I just want to say that, it's really been hard. You would actually have to be in WCW to know what I've been through. And I don't need no sympathy. I don't need shit. I just think that I have a book that I'm writing, and there's so many internet fans. I'm waiting till it gets even bigger and bigger. In about 3 or 4 years, I'll let you know the truth on a lot of stuff that happened, a lot of stuff that was said. And I think that's one of the reasons right now you're seeing like Booker T as champion, Stevie Ray coming back, some of the Nitro girls as valets, because this whole racial lawsuit thing, there's been a lot of stuff that they've done and said that I want to see how they're going to explain it in court. Like I said, assholes come in all colors, and I just thought that I could have made a difference. Benoit, Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Hogan, they dropped the ball. They have a chance to pick it up. I do believe a lot in Eric Bischoff, very intelligent guy, and Vince Russo. And if any two guys can really turn this company around, it's them two.
Again, definitely thank you. It's been an awesome interview, and I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.